Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening. Much like Obito back in the day. The third Hokage shook his head and continued. Naruto is well protected by the Anbu. I summoned you here because I want you to interact with Naruto and begin training him early. To guide him into becoming a proper ninja. The Hokage emphasized the word proper. Kakashi hesitated and said. Hokage-sama, as far as I know, Naruto is still attending the Ninja Academy. The instructors there are more specialized in teaching students than I am. I've never taught anyone before. If you really want me to train Naruto, wouldn't it be better to wait until he graduates? By then, I might have gained some experience as a teacher. The third Hokage sighed. In times of peace, I would naturally let Naruto stay in the academy longer. But with Hidden Stone's village's Jinchuriki threatening us, if Naruto isn't properly trained as a Jinchuriki himself, our casualties on the front lines will continue to rise. He paused for a moment before adding. Besides, you've been in Anbu for so long. Haven't you ever considered leaving and living a normal life? A normal life? Kakashi fell silent. He had nearly forgotten what a normal life even meant. Unlike most ninjas in the village, he had no family, no romantic relationships. Everyone he had ever cared about had been lost to war. The only ninja he still interacted with was Might Guy. But Guy wasn't exactly normal either. Every time they met, it was just another challenge, another training session. How Guy managed to maintain his endless optimism and energy remained a mystery. For Kakashi, life in Anbu and life as a regular ninja weren't all that different. After a moment of contemplation, Kakashi finally spoke. I'm not particularly interested in living a normal life. But if it's an order from you, Hokage-sama, I will do my best to interact with Naruto. Do you want me to take him as my student right away? Or should I find another way to connect with him? The third Hokage fell into deep thought. Ideally, Naruto would become battle-ready as soon as possible. If he could be trained into a Jonin within 6 months and sent to the front lines, that would be even better. But even if Naruto were a genius, reaching Jonin level within 5 years was the best they could realistically hope for. After some deliberation, the Hokage told Kakashi. For now, I won't have Naruto graduate early and join a team under you. Instead, you should find another way to interact with him. Over the years, Naruto has lived alone and endured many hardships. I hope you can look after him. But most importantly, I want you to guide Naruto in his daily life. To shape him into a great ninja like his father. A great ninja like Minato-sensei. Kakashi's mind flashed back to the image of Minato Namikaze before shaking his head. So many years had passed since Minato's death, yet the pain still lingered. He could only hope that Minato's child would truly become the kind of ninja his father had been. But was he really the right person to guide Minato's son? For the first time in a long while, Kakashi doubted himself. Chapter 327, Kakashi's Naruto Observation Diary. After receiving a mission from the third Hokage, Kakashi didn't rush to meet Naruto. He decided to observe Naruto in secret for a few days first. Only by fully understanding him could he tailor the training to help Naruto grow into a great ninja. His first stop for observing Naruto was the Ninja Academy. Wearing his Jonin vest, Kakashi entered the academy and found his old classmate, Iruka. Iruka was Naruto's homeroom teacher. If anyone in the ninja world understood Naruto the most, it would undoubtedly be Iruka. Waving his hand, Kakashi greeted Iruka. Long time no see, Iruka. Your life is still as busy as ever. Have you ever considered changing jobs? I mean, taking care of those little brats is such a hassle, you know. Hearing this, Iruka was momentarily stunned. The voice sounded familiar. When he looked up, he saw Kakashi and quickly stood up. Caring for these kids is indeed exhausting and troublesome, but I actually enjoy it. Soon, a faint smile appeared on Iruka's face. After all, I'm not a genius like you. I couldn't become a Jonin at a young age. Therefore, being able to stay in the Ninja Academy and contribute makes me feel fulfilled. A genius? Kakashi was taken aback for a moment before shaking his head lightly. I'm no genius. Real geniuses at my age already have strengths comparable to Hokages. I've just been wasting my years. Kakashi referred to the fourth Hokage, Minato no Mikaze, and by Akaya from Hidden Rain Village as the real geniuses. He spoke from the heart, but to Iruka, it sounded like humble bragging, leaving him unsure how to respond. To ease the awkwardness, Iruka cleared his throat and changed the subject. Kakashi, you're not just here to visit me, are you? Kakashi nodded. I'm here on a mission from the Hokage. He wants me to make contact with a student in your class. A student in his class. Iruka fell into deep thought. There were quite a few special students in his class. The Hyuga clan's heiress, the successors of the Inoshikacho trio, the last Uchiha survivor, and the most unique of them all, Naruto Uzumaki. Without keeping Iruka guessing, Kakashi stated directly. To be precise, I'm here for Naruto. You should be well aware of his identity. The higher-ups don't intend for Naruto to graduate early, but special training for him is about to begin. Hearing this, Iruka nodded in understanding. He had known about Naruto's special status for a long time. The Hokage had personally instructed him not to treat Naruto harshly because of the Nine Tails incident. With the village currently at war with Hidden Stone's village, the Hokage's desire to train a Jinchuriki was understandable. After a pause, Kakashi asked. Iruka, as Naruto's teacher, you should know him well. Tell me about him. Iruka pondered long before explaining. Naruto is a good kid. He may not put much effort into academic subjects, but he ranks among the top 3 in physical training. Outside the academy, he has also received praise from villagers for frequently helping them. In all my time with Naruto, I have hardly seen any negativity in him. He's like a little son, warming those around him. After hearing Iruka's evaluation, Kakashi felt something was off but couldn't pinpoint what. Minato-sensei had also been kind and warm-hearted toward his comrades. Since Naruto had inherited Minato's bloodline, it was only natural that he inherited his bright and cheerful personality as well. Having gathered some intel from Iruka, Kakashi prepared to leave. He intended to ask more people about Naruto. Only by understanding him from multiple perspectives could he determine what kind of child Naruto truly was. Just as Kakashi was about to leave, Iruka rubbed his hands together and, looking a little embarrassed, said, Kakashi, I need a favor from you. Of course, I won't ask you to do it for free. After work, I'll treat you to a bowl of akiraku ramen. How about that? Kakashi turned around and curiously asked. What is it? Iruka quickly explained. The teacher from the next class, Mijiki, is on leave. He's responsible for the practical combat lessons. So, could you substitute for a class and give the kids some motivation? Kakashi narrowed his eyes slightly. He understood Iruka's intentions and smiled. Of course, I can substitute for a class. But don't you think just one bowl of ramen is too little? How about 2? Iruka was momentarily stunned before nodding in agreement. Half an hour later, Kakashi was introduced as a guest instructor at the training ground. Iruka gathered 2 classes of students, first introducing Kakashi as a jonin and then emphasizing how rare this opportunity was. Having a jonin personally teach them was not something that happened often. Seeing this scene, Kakashi recalled his own school days and smiled, shaking his head. When it was his turn to demonstrate, Kakashi casually performed the fire style, Great Fireball. With overwhelming strength, he easily defeated 2 Chunin instructors working together. The students in Iruka's class were all left in shock. As Ninja Academy students, they knew the hierarchy among ninjas. In the ninja world, ninjas were divided into 5 ranks: Academy students who had yet to graduate, Geinin who had just started taking missions, Chunin capable of leading a team, Jonin who were elites among elites. And finally, the 5 Kage, the strongest in the ninja world. Kakashi wasn't a Kage, but he was one of the top Jonin. When they saw Kakashi, they knew he was strong, but they hadn't expected him to defeat their instructors so effortlessly. In the crowd, 2 students had peculiar expressions as they stared at Kakashi intently. One of them was Sasuke. He felt a familiar aura from Kakashi, and the fact that Kakashi used the fire style, Great Fireball, a signature Uchiha technique, only deepened his suspicions. Seeing that jutsu reminded him of his fallen clan members. It had been half a year since the Uchiha massacre, yet Sasuke still woke up in the middle of the night, haunted by memories of that blood-soaked evening and the river of corpses in his clan's compound. If not for that man, he would not have been left all alone. The other student watching Kakashi closely was Naruto. After receiving Black Zetsu's guidance, Naruto was no longer the dead last who couldn't even perform the basic clone jutsu. With his exceptional bloodline and Black Zetsu's training, Naruto had already mastered tree climbing and water walking techniques. Aside from the 3 basic jutsu, He had also learned several D-rank and even C-rank wind-style jutsu. Had it not been for Black Zetsu's repeated advice to conceal his strength, Naruto would have already applied for early graduation. However, Naruto was more focused on evaluating Kakashi's strength than Sasuke. He was confident he could defeat Iruka and Mijiki, but he wasn't sure if he could take on the Jonin standing before him. Chapter 328, Kakashi's Concerns. Before witnessing Kakashi effortlessly overpower two Chunins, Naruto had a vague understanding of the hierarchy of ninja ranks. He assumed there might be some differences in strength, but not to a significant degree. For instance, while he had confidence in defeating a Chunin, he believed that several Chunin together would always be able to overcome a Jonin. The usually kind and grandfatherly third Hokage, no matter how strong, could at most handle a dozen or so genin at once. After all, ninjas were ultimately flesh and blood, with no insurmountable gaps between them. Or so he thought. However, after witnessing Kakashi's abilities, Naruto's worldview was completely overturned. Kakashi could handle a Chunin with such ease that it was obvious he could also take on a dozen or even 20 genin effortlessly. For the third Hokage, the number of genin hardly seemed to matter anymore. The dream of becoming Hokage suddenly felt far more challenging than Naruto had imagined. In the days that followed, Naruto often sensed Kakashi's gaze lingering on him. Though he was somewhat used to being watched like this, it still left him feeling a bit uneasy. After physical training, Naruto attended cultural and political lessons. He listened attentively to the cultural lessons related to his future as a ninja. These were important for his goal of becoming Hokage. However, when it came to lessons on the Will of Fire, Naruto found himself growing bored. It wasn't because he disrespected the concept. When he was very young, he had read every book in the library about the Will of Fire. These books all emphasized the ideals of self-sacrifice and protecting one's comrades. But they rarely taught practical ways to achieve these ideals, nor did anyone clearly define who comrades truly were. At first, Naruto thought everyone in the village was a comrade. Even though they looked down on him due to certain rumors, he believed that if he showed them sincerity, he could earn their trust and gradually gain their recognition as comrades. This proved true in many ways. After he began presenting a cheerful and enthusiastic persona, the villagers' attitudes toward him became much friendlier. Apart from a few individuals who sought to exploit him, most people eventually accepted him. So, Naruto excluded those who didn't recognize him from his definition of comrades. From that moment on, Naruto realized that not everyone in this village, which preached the Will of Fire, genuinely believed in or practiced it. Many people only paid lip service to the Will of Fire while their actions completely contradicted its principles. Some hypocritical villagers were like this, and so were some of the instructors at the Ninja Academy. In Naruto's eyes, the only ones who truly practiced the Will of Fire were Iruka-sensei and himself. Naruto pursued it to earn recognition. But what was Iruka-sensei's reason? Naruto pondered for a long time but couldn't arrive at an answer. However, that didn't stop him from continuing to practice the Will of Fire. To Naruto, it was as useful a tool as ninjutsu itself. After school ended at 3 p.m., Naruto followed his usual routine of wandering the streets, looking for people who needed help. He ran errands for shopkeepers, helped elderly people cross the street, and stood up for bullied children by teaching the bullies a lesson with his fists. While Naruto busied himself to help others, Kakashi silently observed him from the shadows. Naruto's actions were flawless, even better than those of Kakashi's old friend Obito. Unlike Naruto, Obito often made clumsy mistakes when helping others, and his grades weren't exceptional. But Naruto committed no such errors. He was like a textbook perfect model of a ninja. Seeing this, Kakashi felt conflicted. Naruto had inherited the best qualities of Minato-sensei, which was a good thing. But it also meant that Kakashi couldn't find any meaningful way to help Naruto. He seemed to need no guidance or assistance at all. When night fell, Naruto left the bustling streets of Hidden Leaf Village. After wandering for a while, he arrived at a secluded clearing in the mountains behind Hidden Leaf Village. There, he began practicing his throwing techniques and taijutsu against a few wooden training posts. Exchanging a glance with the Anbu assigned to guard Naruto, Kakashi turned his full attention to observing the boy's every move. From Naruto's training intensity and techniques, it was clear that his strength far exceeded that of his peers. He was comparable to or even stronger than Kakashi at that age. Naruto's current abilities were more than sufficient for him to graduate and become a genin, ready to serve on the front lines. However, as a Jinchuriki, Naruto's strength was still far from enough. A Jinchuriki was destined to be a prime target for enemy attacks. Without Jonin-level skills, he couldn't evade assassination attempts or control the Ninetales to wield its powerful tailed beast ball. Despite how impressive Naruto appeared now, it was uncertain whether he had even faced the Ninetales yet. After 2 hours of training, Naruto finally left the training ground, panting heavily. As Kakashi prepared to follow, Naruto suddenly spun around and said, "Mr. Kakashi, you've been trailing me all day. What exactly is it about me that you find so interesting? Or were you sent here by Grandpa Hokage? Other than him, no one else has the authority to order Jonin in the village." Hearing Naruto reveal his identity and purpose, Kakashi's face grew slightly awkward. Maintaining his usual aloof demeanor to preserve his authority, Kakashi replied coolly, "Your perception is sharper than I expected. You're right. The third Hokage sent me. My mission is to help train you into a proper ninja." Hearing this, Naruto turned back toward the training ground and called out, "If you're my mentor, then hurry up and guide me. No matter how long I train alone, I'll never fully understand the gap between myself and a Jonin." Kakashi's lips twitched slightly at this but followed Naruto. Watching Naruto's calm, unhurried figure walking ahead of him, Kakashi felt a faint sense of disorientation. At last, he understood what felt off about Naruto. Naruto was excellent in every way, except he didn't feel like a child. A child of Naruto's age, no matter how mature, would inevitably show glimpses of childish behavior. Even while mimicking adults, their maturity would show in subtle ways. For example, when Kakashi attended the Ninja Academy, no matter how cool he tried to act, he couldn't help but grin after defeating Obito in a sparring match. It wasn't until he found his father dead at home that he began closing himself off emotionally. Even then, as a grieving child, he still displayed bouts of anger and tantrums, behaviors typical of his age. Naruto, however, was different. Kakashi couldn't sense any childishness in him. Naruto always wore a smile when dealing with others, and no matter the situation, he maintained a calm, measured demeanor. Kakashi couldn't fathom what Naruto had experienced to become so composed. Was it because he had been an orphan since birth? Or was it the discrimination he faced from the villagers? Kakashi couldn't decide whether this aspect of Naruto's personality was a blessing or a curse. But if Naruto truly had no temper, what would happen to him when he faced challenges no one could help him overcome? Chapter 329, Naruto's Dilemma. Standing in the clearing, Naruto formed a seal of opposition, looking at Kakashi and saying, "Kakashi-san, before starting my special training, I want to see your strength." I decided to use Japanese honorifics other than sensei and sama. The original author called him Jonin Kakashi. But it felt cringy, challenging a Jonin before even graduating from the academy. Kakashi silently complained to himself but stepped forward to form the opposing seal. He knew that sparring with Naruto would help gauge the boy's strength and allow him to tailor the training accordingly. After the two put enough distance between them, Kakashi smiled amusedly. "Naruto, I won't be going hard on you. However, if you can force me to use ninjutsu, then this spar will be your win." Hearing this, Naruto nodded slightly. Without waiting for Kakashi to call the start, he launched his attack. With chakra enhancing his speed, Naruto appeared in front of Kakashi in less than half a second, aiming a punch directly at Kakashi's nose. Kakashi effortlessly sidestepped the punch and countered with a palm strike aimed at Naruto's stomach, intending to end the spar instantly. With a bang, Naruto was struck, only to vanish in a puff of white smoke. It was the clone technique, one of the basic 3 academy techniques. While it lacked combat ability and physical presence, it was excellent for confusing opponents, making it an essential jutsu for academy graduation. However, the clone technique's utility was limited to beginner-level ninjas. Any skilled ninja could easily see through it, and Kakashi was no exception. To test Naruto further, Kakashi deliberately feigned surprise. Without even turning around, he intercepted Naruto's follow-up sneak attack and prepared another strike. Another loud thud. But this time, the Naruto transformed into a log. The real Naruto reappeared a dozen meters away. Seeing this, a faint smile formed on Kakashi's lips. As a Jonin, Kakashi could easily see through Naruto's tricks, but it didn't mean the same for most Genin. Naruto's mastery of the 3 academy techniques already surpassed many Genin. Just based on that, Naruto was ready to graduate from the Ninja Academy. However, Naruto's current strength was still far from enough to shoulder the responsibilities of a Jinchuriki and stand among the village's elite. In a flash, Kakashi appeared behind Naruto, pressing a stick he had picked up against the boy's back. Naruto felt a cold chill down his spine but managed to narrowly evade Kakashi's attack. Forming hand signs, he unleashed the clone technique again, attacking alongside his clones. Still relying on clones without substance? Kakashi thought disdainfully. Just as he lowered his guard, one of Naruto's clones suddenly landed a solid punch. Kakashi's expression shifted in surprise, but then he seemed to realize something, his gaze turning strange as he looked at Naruto. "The spar ends here. I've seen enough of your strength. But I'm very curious. How did you learn the Shadow Clone technique? That's a B-rank jutsu and not part of the academy curriculum." "Shadow Clone technique?" Naruto looked puzzled, Not understanding what Kakashi meant, he asked, "What's the shadow clone technique? I only know the clone technique." "What are you talking about?" Kakashi sighed. "The clone technique doesn't create physical clones. Only shadow clones can." Realization dawned on Naruto. "Oh, you mean my clones are physical? That's just my modified clone technique. I found that if I put enough chakra into a clone, it can gain physical form." Kakashi was momentarily speechless. He had assumed Naruto had somehow learned the shadow clone technique through unauthorized means and had been shocked that the third Hokage would allow Naruto access to such a dangerous jutsu so early. But to think Naruto had developed it himself. As for the brilliance required to create a new jutsu, Kakashi wasn't sure what to think. Most skilled ninjas Kakashi knew had either created their own jutsu or improved upon existing ones. Typically, a ninja would reach the level of a jonin, master chakra nature transformation, and then begin developing techniques. But Naruto was far from jonin level and likely didn't even understand chakra nature transformation. To create something akin to the shadow clone technique without any prior knowledge was a testament to Naruto's natural talent. From this perspective, Naruto had the potential to reach, perhaps even surpass, the strength of his father, the fourth Hokage. With the nine tails sealed within him, Naruto might one day eclipse even that. After a moment of thought, Kakashi and Naruto formed a seal of reconciliation, signaling the end of their spar. After confirming that Naruto had at least the strength of a genin, Kakashi took him to the southern river to teach him the art of precise chakra control. However, Naruto quickly demonstrated his proficiency in tree climbing and water walking techniques, leaving Kakashi in an awkward position. Unsure of what else to teach Naruto, Kakashi bade him farewell, and they both went their separate ways home. Returning to his small house in the village center, Naruto took a hot shower and lay on his bed, chatting idly with the Black Zetsu spirit housed within his kunai pendant. "Black Zetsu, why do you think Kakashi is approaching me? Is it just because Grandpa Third gave him a mission? But every time he sees me, he seems to pause momentarily, as if he's remembering someone else." Scratching his cheek, Naruto continued. "I think Kakashi definitely knows my family. But, like Grandpa Third, he refuses to tell me. Is it because my identity is too special? Or is there some other reason?" Naruto wasn't naive. Even at a young age, he realized he was different from other children. It wasn't just because he was an orphan without parents or relatives. There were plenty of orphans in the village. Some lived with distant relatives, others were sent to the orphanage. However, Naruto was the only orphan in the entire Hidden Leaf village who lived alone. He had once asked the third Hokage about it, but the Hokage had deflected his questions with vague excuses. Over time, Naruto had grown used to it and stopped pursuing the details of his origins. Yet after today's interaction with Kakashi, the curiosity about his identity has reignited. "You're undoubtedly special. You're the reincarnation of Azura, the son of the fourth Hokage, and the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. There are hardly any ninjas in this world with a more complex identity than yours." After a moment's thought, Black Zetsu replied lazily. "You've stopped worrying about your past for so long time, so why are you dwindling now? Once you grow strong enough, the answers will naturally come to you." Since neither the third Hokage nor Kakashi had revealed Naruto's true identity, Black Zetsu saw no reason to complicate matters. After all, he wasn't the one deceiving Naruto. His role was simply to play the part of a caring grandfather and occasionally show concern for the boy. In Black Zetsu's experience, the brighter and more cheerful the boy was, the more likely he was to fall into darkness. Chapter 330, Learning the Identity. No matter if it was the third Hokage, Kakashi, or Black Zetsu, they all advised Naruto not to dwell too much on his origins. They assured him that once he grew stronger, all truths would eventually come to light. Knowing the correct answers at the wrong time wasn't necessarily good. But this reassurance relied on the assumption that the third Hokage and Kakashi knew when Naruto was strong enough to handle the truth. Naruto himself, however, didn't have that insight. He had no idea how much effort he needed to put in before he could uncover the truth. If he were lucky, perhaps the answers would come to him tomorrow. If unlucky, the third Hokage might keep deflecting him with claims of insufficient strength for the rest of his life. This uncertainty gnawed at Naruto, leaving him deeply uneasy, even to the point of sleeplessness. After tossing and turning all night, Naruto woke after only 3 or 4 hours of rest. He washed up quickly and tried to shake off his gloomy thoughts before heading to the Ninja Academy. Black Zetsu had a point. It was no use dwelling on his origins. Obsessing over them would only lead to severe mental exhaustion, making it hard to accomplish small tasks like attending school or helping others. But sometimes, even knowing that brooding was futile, Naruto couldn't stop himself from thinking about it. After a restless morning, Naruto found himself back on the streets, habitually helping an old woman cross the road. Once she was safely on the other side, she adjusted her glasses, sighed softly, and said, "Child, your back reminds me so much of the fourth Hokage when he was young. He used to enjoy helping the elderly too." The fourth Hokage? Naruto froze upon hearing the name. It seemed like a clue. If he could uncover information about the fourth Hokage, he might learn about his own identity. Steeling himself, Naruto glanced around the street and suppressed the excitement rising within him, his expression returning to normal. He knew his identity was unusual, with constant surveillance ensuring that the third Hokage could locate him at any time. If the third Hokage discovered that Naruto was investigating this matter, he would surely intervene. Naruto resolved to find the truth subtly, using legitimate means. This might be his last chance to get close to the truth. Over the next few days, Naruto balanced his daily life with his efforts to gather information about the fourth Hokage. It wasn't difficult to find information about the fourth Hokage. A few inquiries with the village elders yielded plenty of details, and the library held records of his many deeds. The fourth Hokage was named Minato Namikaze. He had golden hair and sky-blue eyes. Features identical to Naruto's. Like Naruto, Minato had grown up as an orphan in an orphanage. He had displayed exceptional talent from a young age, completing his ninja education in just 3 years. At a young age, he became a Jonin and achieved remarkable success in the second and third ninja wars. With these achievements, Minato outshone his rival, Orochimaru, and was selected as the fourth Hokage. At this point, Naruto felt that the legendary life of the fourth Hokage was beginning. But soon, the village experienced the Night of the Nine-Tails. In order to save the village, the fourth Hokage sacrificed his life. Upon seeing the term nine-tailed fox, Naruto's thoughts wandered to his pre-academy days. The villagers used to call him the Fox Demon. Could he truly be the reincarnation of the Nine-Tails? The timing of his birth and the defeat of the Nine-Tails certainly supported this theory. But Naruto's physical features were identical to those of the fourth Hokage. Couldn't anyone suspect that he might be the fourth Hokage's child? It seemed like the most logical possibility. Naruto shook his head at the thought. If he were truly the fourth Hokage's child, wouldn't he have been treated as a hero's son? No matter how foolish the villagers might be, they wouldn't have shown such disdain for the fourth Hokage's child. The most important point was his name, Naruto Uzumaki, not Naruto Namikaze. It was more likely that he was the child of the Nine-Tails. If that were the case, the animosity he faced from the villagers would make sense. He had caused them great pain in the past. From this perspective, the will of fire might not be a hollow ideal after all. The fact that the third Hokage could accept him, despite his connection to the Nine-Tails, and that Naruto could gain the villagers' recognition by helping others, showed that he had transformed from the child of the Nine-Tails into a genuinely good person. As Naruto was immersed in his musings about the will of fire, his eyes caught the name of the fourth Hokage's spouse. The spouse of the fourth Hokage was Kushina Uzumaki, who shared the same surname as Naruto. Like Naruto, Kushina held a unique and mysterious identity. Naruto wanted to find more information about Kushina, but there was very little available. However, in another book, Naruto learned about the tailed beasts and Jinchuriki. He discovered that tailed beasts were not merely catastrophic monsters, they could also be sealed within the bodies of shinobi. Shinobi who carried tailed beasts within them were known as Jinchuriki. After reading this, Naruto calmly closed the book, pretending nothing was amiss as he opened another miscellaneous volume. Inside, however, a storm of emotions raged. He was indeed an orphan, but he wasn't the child of the Nine-Tails. He was the son of the fourth Hokage. The place where he lived was protected at the cost of his parents' lives. Yet, in this village, he had been treated unfairly and labeled as the child of the Nine-Tails. Although the period of being labeled as such was short and almost forgotten, Naruto didn't care about that time. What he couldn't accept was the third Hokage's secrecy. Why had the third hidden his identity? Why wasn't he allowed to know who his father was? His parents weren't criminals. They were heroes who had protected the village. After returning home, Naruto sat on his bed, speaking to the kunai pendant in a low, somber tone. Black Zetsu, I've figured out who I am. I'm not just anyone. I'm the son of the fourth Hokage. And I may have inherited something from my mother. A tailed beast. It's because of this identity that my mother and I had to remain hidden. Black Zetsu was slightly surprised at Naruto's investigative abilities. This academy student uncovered so much information in just a few days. For a full-fledged ninja, these details might not be secrets, but it was remarkable for someone like Naruto. A mere academy student with a uniquely guarded identity. Surely, the third Hokage wouldn't have allowed Naruto access to this knowledge. On second thought, however, it made sense. While the third was the Hokage, he wasn't the sole authority in Hidden Leaf Village. There was also the Hokage in the shadows. That figure had once been Denzo but was now under Byakuya's command. Shisui Uchiha. If Byakuya intended to manipulate Naruto, it would be a simple task. After pondering this, Black Zetsu spoke to Naruto. Now that you know this, what do you plan to do? Continue as before, or take action against those who deceived you in the village? Naruto shook his head gently and replied. I don't plan to do anything. Just knowing who I am is enough for me. I'm a ninja of Hidden Leaf Village. I will follow the will of fire both now and in the future. Black Zetsu detected the underlying meaning in Naruto's words and smiled quietly. While a Hidden Leaf Village ninja may adhere to Hidden Leaf Village's rules, no ninja remains bound to their village forever. Chapter 331, Settling Matters in Hidden Sand Village. After learning the truth about his identity, Naruto neither caused a scene nor lost control. He calmly accepted the fact that he was the son of the fourth Hokage and the Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails. He even decided to continue practicing the will of fire moving forward. Upon receiving this news from White Zetsu, Byakuya smiled mysteriously. Naruto's access to records about the fourth Hokage and Kushina was no coincidence. It was intricately tied to Byakuya. If not for Byakuya's instructions for Shisui to prepare in advance, Naruto might have had to wait until after the Pain Invasion arc to discover his parentage. The question of why Naruto learned about his lineage so late is a curious one. In the original timeline, as Naruto grew older and his unique status as the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki became more apparent, many shinobi in Hidden Leaf Village must have suspected his identity. However, these individuals either hid the truth or deceived him outright. No one ever told Naruto directly. If Naruto hadn't broken the 8 trigram seal himself, he might never have known he was the son of the fourth Hokage. The reason for this secrecy was simple. Initially, no one knew his true identity, and later, they were too afraid to let him know. Suppose Naruto had discovered he was the son of a hero yet endured such unjust treatment as a child. In that case, it might have caused a mental imbalance or even triggered a destructive rampage, resulting in another Nine-Tails incident. Only when Naruto had enough strength and status, earning recognition as a hero of Hidden Leaf Village, did the village plan to reveal his lineage. By then, a successful and respected Naruto wouldn't have pursued the grievances of his childhood. But that was the Naruto of the original timeline. In this altered reality, Naruto was raised under the influence of Black Zetsu. Even though Black Zetsu followed Byakuya's orders and acted as a grandfatherly mentor, Naruto was inevitably affected by his influence and gradually progressed toward darkness. Naruto's reaction to learning the truth was very telling. Byakuya was quite satisfied with his progress toward darkening. If Naruto had reacted with outrage or stormed into the Hokage's office to demand answers, it would have shown that Black Zetsu's influence wasn't thorough enough and that Naruto still had faith in the will of fire. However, the current situation has changed. On the surface, Naruto professed belief in the will of fire, repeated it aloud, and even practiced it in his daily actions. But deep down, Naruto didn't honestly believe in it. He merely treated the will of fire as a tool. Naruto understood that as long as he displayed behavior aligned with the will of fire, he would gain more benefits. Not only would it lower the third Hokage's guard, but it would also sway hesitant villagers and shinobi to his side. By making Naruto use the will of fire instead of being brainwashed by it, Byakuya achieved his goal through Black Zetsu's guidance. This approach would cultivate a vastly different Naruto from the original timeline. A Naruto who could eventually join Byakuya's Akatsuki organization. Pulling his scattered thoughts back together, Byakuya quickly wrote letters to be delivered by his wood clones to Black Zetsu, Shisui, and Kabuto Yakushi. These 3 were his key operatives in Hidden Leaf Village, where Black Zetsu was responsible for the Child of Prophecy. Naruto, Shisui Uchiha monitored the Hokage's office and the Anbu, and Kabuto Yakushi, the most secretive pawn, gathered intel on the inner workings of Hidden Leaf Village. After finishing the letters and sending them off with the clones, Byakuya turned his attention to a mission report sent by Sasori. Sasori wasn't fond of mission reports but was enthusiastic about exchanging puppet techniques ideas. He had written extensively about the future of puppetry and new developments. Byakuya skimmed through this before reaching the crucial piece of information at the end. 2 months after the 4th Kazekage's defection, Sasori had successfully become the 5th Kazekage. He gradually adapted to his role and got along well with Raza's 3 children. After carefully reviewing the report, Byakuya felt a sense of relief. He had orchestrated Sasori's rise to power as the 5th Kazekage to exert control over Hidden Sand Village. However, Sasori's ability to maintain control over the village was still uncertain. After all, Sasori had defected from the village as a teenager and was a notorious problem child. There was always the possibility that Sasori might grow tired of the Kazekage position and defect again. With Sasori successfully becoming the 5th Kazekage, Byakuya couldn't help but reflect that Sasori indeed had what it took to secure the position. Despite wandering the world for over a decade, his sense of belonging to Hidden Sand Village had evidently not faded. As a puppeteer, Seisaori's personality was akin to a scientist's. So long as he had ample experimental materials, he could immerse himself in research indefinitely. As for the administrative duties of the Kazekage, those could easily be delegated to others. The shinobi world operates on the principle of power above all else. Constantly handling bureaucratic affairs leaves little time for training. However, with Seisaori now as the 5th Kazekage and a member of the Akatsuki, Hidden Sand Village could, in theory, now be considered subordinate to the organization. If that's the case, shouldn't the system be rewarding me with a huge payout? Byakuya mused. Just as the thought crossed his mind, the familiar sound of the system notification echoed in his ears. Seisaori of the Red Sand has become the 5th Kazekage, and Hidden Sand Village has officially joined the Akatsuki. You have received the Wind-Style Ninjutsu Compendium, the Advanced Puppet Manufacturing Compendium, the Wind-Style Mastery, and a large amount of chakra. The notification chimed for a solid 10 seconds. The reward sounded generous, but Byakuya still felt slightly disappointed. The entire Hidden Sand Village has joined the Akatsuki? Logically, I should get a reward for every single ninja in the village, right? Even if lower-ranking shinobi and chunin weren't included, there should still have been dozens of notifications. Then again, on second thought, most Hidden Sand Village shinobi likely only possessed basic ninjutsu and taijutsu. Only a select few elites would have mastered advanced techniques or Kekkei Genkai. The system rewards combined all these individual contributions into significant upgrades, such as the Wind-Style Compendium and the Advanced Puppet Manufacturing Compendium. The individual chakra fragments from each shinobi had also fused into the large amount of chakra reward, saving Byakuya the hassle of managing numerous small rewards. After claiming his prizes, Byakuya felt a warm current flow through his body, expanding his chakra reserves significantly. The large amount of chakra was no exaggeration. While still falling short of the chakra levels of a full-tailed beast, it was not far behind. His already formidable chakra reserves had grown even more terrifying. Out of curiosity, Byakuya opened his system panel and checked his personal stats. The word Tailed Beast Plus stood out prominently, indicating that his chakra levels had surpassed that of an average tailed beast and reached a realm beyond the capabilities of ordinary shinobi. And yet, this was not his limit. Byakuya speculated that if he could bring all 5 great shinobi villages under his control and gather all the tailed beasts, his chakra reserves would surpass Kurama's and approach the level of the complete 10 tails. At that point, he might not even need to become the 10 tails Jinchuriki to attain 6 paths level power. However, as his rewards accumulated, his abilities grew increasingly diverse. By now, he had mastered nearly half of the bloodline limit in the shinobi world and could no longer track how many jutsu he had learned. At this point, Byakuya felt more like the true professor of ninjutsu than anyone else. After all, he had genuinely mastered over 1,000 jutsu. Chapter 332, Strategic Planning and Future Plans. Name, Byakuya. Age, 22 years old. Current affiliated organization, Akatsuki Organization. Chakra attributes, lightning, water, earth, wind, fire, yang, yin, ninjutsu, substitution jutsu, basic kunai throwing technique, advanced wind style ninjutsu, mastery of water style ninjutsu, advanced paper style, mastery of wood style, disguise jutsu, spore jutsu, mayfly technique, Kekkei Genkai, basic wood style, basic yin-yang style, magnet style, bloodline, Ashura, Indra, personal evaluation, peak Kage level, capable of easily crushing most shinobi, but stands little chance of escaping when facing truly formidable opponents. Byakuya glanced at the system panel and silently closed it. To him, the system panel served as a reference and couldn't accurately quantify his actual strength. Before defeating Hanzo of the Salamander, his strength had been evaluated as Kage level. Now, as someone nearing the title of the god of shinobi of his era, his strength was still marked as Kage level. Over the past decade, it seemed his training had been in vain. He still hadn't reached the Super Kage stage. But does the system even acknowledge such a stage? Byakuya had some doubts but quickly brushed them aside. The system appeared to be telling him that, despite his overwhelming banal stats, he wasn't truly powerful. During the early years of the shinobi world, power levels progressed slowly. Even advancing from Geinin to Chunin was an arduous task. Yet, in just 3 days during the Fourth Shinobi World War, Naruto and Sasuke advanced from Kage level to the 6 paths level. Compared to those two, who the Sage of 6 Paths essentially gave a cheat, his current strength was nothing to brag about. Moreover, the criteria for Kage level within the shinobi world itself were very vague. A regular person who only knew ninjutsu and taijutsu could be Kage level, while a shinobi possessing Otsutsuki bloodline powers could also be Kage level. All of them were labeled as legendary S-rank ninjas. After exhaling deeply, Byakuya opened the rest of the intelligence scrolls. They contained development reports for the Akatsuki's subordinate organizations, such as Hidden Rain Village, Village Hidden in the Rain, and Hidden Grass Village, Village Hidden in the Grass, as well as updates on the war fronts involving Hidden Leaf Village, Hidden Leaf, and Hidden Stones Village, Hidden Stone. Byakuya wasn't particularly interested in the development reports. Ever since Hidden Rain Village and the Akatsuki organization ran smoothly, he had stepped back from organizational management. If he had to handle everything personally, he'd have collapsed at his desk long ago. These tedious matters were better left to Yahiko. After all, among the Akatsuki elites, Yahiko was the only one who wasn't Kage level. For the sake of the organization's growth, Yahiko had to shoulder the burden. Fortunately, Yahiko was naturally suited for administrative duties and diplomatic activities. Whenever Byakuya met with domestic merchants, they always seemed to tremble in fear. He couldn't quite understand why. Was it because he had ordered the assassination of a daimyo or eliminated a few deep-rooted financial conglomerates? These merchants' mental fortitude really needed improvement. After finishing the development reports, Byakuya turned his attention to the war intelligence between Hidden Stones Village and Hidden Leaf Village. Since Jiraiya and Tsunade had joined the conflict, the intensity of the war between Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Stones Village had noticeably escalated, with signs of transitioning from localized military skirmishes to full-scale war. However, Byakuya didn't think it would escalate much further. The battlefield between Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Stones Village would likely drag on for a long time but wouldn't expand further. After all, the conflict between the two villages hadn't reached a life-or-death stage yet. If their mutual aggression caused their forces to weaken significantly, it would inevitably invite attacks from other major shinobi villages, particularly Hidden Cloud Village, which was separated from both Hidden Stones Village and Hidden Leaf Village by the sea. Hidden Clouds Village had suffered considerable losses during the last war, even losing their two-tails Jinchuriki. However, their core combat strength remained largely intact. The village still boasted the formidable duo of the 4th Raikage and Killer Bee, as well as a significant number of elite Jonin. Although Hidden Clouds Village hadn't yet intervened in the conflict, they were undoubtedly closely monitoring the situation in the shinobi world and could enter the fray at any moment. Hidden Rain Village's true enemy was also Hidden Clouds Village. Seizing the opportunity created by the war between Hidden Stones Village and Hidden Leaf Village, Hidden Rain Village had begun secretly trading arms and supplies. Beyond this, the village was working on exerting a more subtle influence over the shinobi world. Similarly, Hidden Clouds Village had its ambitions. Recently, they had been active in the member nations under Akatsuki's control, attempting to annex smaller villages and turn them into satellite states. If not for the continuous presence of Kakazu, Hidan, and others in the smaller nations, Hidden Clouds Village might have succeeded in its infiltration efforts. After reading through all the intelligence reports, Byakuya sank into deep thought. He began considering Akatsuki's next steps. The organization's ultimate strategy was undoubtedly to collect all the tailed beasts and weaponize the 10 tails. However, the order in which the tailed beasts were collected required careful planning. Currently, the one tail from Hidden Sand Village was already within Akatsuki's grasp, ready for extraction at any time. The 2 tails and 7 tails Jinchuriki were also under Akatsuki's jurisdiction. This left 6-tailed beasts remaining to be collected. Among them, the 8 tails from Hidden Clouds Village was untouchable for now. Killer Bee had a close bond with the 4th Raikage. If Killer Bee were to go missing, it would undoubtedly alert the Raikage. Although Byakuya was confident he could defeat the 4th Raikage, his ambitions extended far beyond the 8 tails alone. If Hidden Clouds Village could be brought under Akatsuki's control, his power would grow exponentially. Thus, Akatsuki couldn't make a move on the 8 tails for the time being. At least not under Byakuya's direction. The plan to hunt the 8 tails would have to be shelved for now. As for the 4 tails and 5 tails Jinchuriki from Hidden Stones Village, they were also off-limits for the moment. These were formidable Jinchuriki who had once forced Jiraiya and Minato no Mikaze into retreat during a combined effort. Akatsuki currently lacked the manpower to confront them. It would have to wait until Kisame Hoshigaki joined their ranks. The 9 tails Jinchuriki from Hidden Leaf Village didn't even warrant discussion. Naruto, as the child of prophecy, was far more significant than simply being a Jinchuriki. He would undoubtedly be the last target of the hunt. Having ruled out these options, Byakuya's only remaining choice was Hidden Mist Village. Hidden Mist Village was notorious for producing rogue ninjas. In the original timeline, it gave rise to formidable defectors like Zabuza Momoki, Jazobiwa, and Kisame Hoshigaki. Even the village's leader, the 4th Mizukage, had been a puppet controlled by Obito. In this timeline, Obito had similarly taken control of the 4th Mizukage. To collect the tailed beasts from Hidden Mist Village, Akatsuki would inevitably have to deal with the fourth Mizukage. Thus, hunting the tailed beasts from Hidden Mist Village wouldn't be particularly difficult. The problem lay in Byakuya's relationship with Obito, which was far from amicable. Although Byakuya had used brute force to secure his position and status within Akatsuki, he rarely issued commands to Obito. For the most part, Byakuya and Obito operated independently. Byakuya had issued a few orders to Obito, and Obito had shared little information about Hidden Mist Village's operations. All the intelligence Byakuya currently possessed came from his prior life memories and reconnaissance conducted by his wood clones. Before hunting the 3 tails and 6 tails from Hidden Mist Village, Byakuya needed to find a way to wrest control of Hidden Mist Village from Obito. But how to implement this plan required careful thought. If he tried to force Obito to relinquish control of the 4th Mizukage, Obito would undoubtedly refuse. Moreover, the hunt for the tailed beasts had to remain covert. If Akatsuki's plans to collect the tailed beasts were exposed prematurely, the organization, no matter how powerful, wouldn't be able to withstand an assault from the remaining major shinobi villages. If Akatsuki's development faltered, Byakuya's growth would also slow, leaving him unprepared to deal with the extraterrestrial threats that would emerge in the later stages of the shinobi world. Thus, to fully integrate Hidden Rain Village's power under his control, Byakuya needed to carefully devise a strategy and identify a suitable candidate to serve as the next Mizukage. Chapter 333, The Ninja Who Wielded a Blade Against the Mizukage in the Ninja World. Becoming the leader of one of the 5 great shinobi villages is no easy task. Selecting the right person to become one of the 5 Kage is even harder. First, the candidate must possess sufficient strength to intimidate the village's troublemakers. Second, they must gain the approval of the internal interest groups within the village to secure their position. Finally, and most crucially, they need luck. Something that might seem insignificant but is actually of great importance. The newly appointed 5th Kazekage, Sasori, is the perfect example. Sasori was able to kill the 3rd Kazekage and fight a tailed beast head-on, proving he had the strength to become Kazekage. As elders of Hidden Sand Village, Chio and Debizo were his strongest supporters, helping him consolidate his position as Kazekage. But without the command that allowed Sasori to take control of Hidden Sand Village, he would still be a wandering rogue ninja. Because of this, Byakuya believed that strength, background, and luck are the 3 essential elements to becoming a Kage. If any of these 3 elements are missing, the only way to become the leader of a shinobi village would be through a coup d'etat. However, throughout the entire ninja world, aside from the Akatsuki organization, there have been no successful cases of seizing power. Whether it was the rebellion led by the Gold and Silver brothers in Hidden Clouds Village decades ago or the recent Uchiha coup, they all ended in failure without exception. The reason is simple: if they were truly in a winning position, they wouldn't need to stage a coup. Only when they are at a comprehensive disadvantage would they take desperate measures as a last resort. However, Hidden Mist Village is an exception. Unlike other villages that prioritize strength and background, Hidden Mist Village fully implements the brutal law of the jungle. Not only do graduates have to kill their fellow comrades as part of their final exam, but even the selection of the Mizukage is devoid of any formal election process. As long as one possesses the strongest strength in Hidden Mist Village, they can become the new Mizukage. This method of selection has made the Mizukage the shortest-lived among the 5 Kage and has indirectly caused Hidden Mist Village to fall into severe internal strife. Despite possessing strength comparable to Hidden Stones Village and Hidden Clouds Village, Hidden Mist Village has been unable to become the offshore balancer of the ninja world. Instead, in endless internal conflict, it has declined to the level of a second-rate shinobi village like Hidden Sand Village. After reflecting on Hidden Mist Village's past and present, Byakuya rested his chin on his hand, contemplating the suitable candidates for Mizukage. After the turmoil caused by Madara Uchiha and Obito, there weren't many ninjas left in Hidden Mist Village who were capable of competing for the position of Mizukage. With the support of Master Genjutsu and wielding 2K Genkai, Mate Rumami was one candidate. Another was Maingetsu Hazuki, who hailed from the Hazuki clan and wielded the dual swords Hiramagai. Other ninjas either lacked the ability or qualifications to become Mizukage, or they had already become rogue ninjas. This wasn't due to a lack of talent in Hidden Mist Village. Heck, on the contrary, the village had no shortage of ninja with Kage-level strength. Prodigies like Kinema-uro of the Kaguya clan and Kisame Hoshigaki from the Hidden Mist Village Anbu would both achieve Kage-level strength in the future. However, for various reasons, these individuals left Hidden Mist Village and served other factions. For example, there happened to be a rogue ninja from Hidden Mist Village currently residing in Hidden Rain Village. This rogue ninja was none other than Juzo-biwa, the original wielder of the Kubaki Ribicho, who had fled Hidden Mist Village out of dissatisfaction with the 4th Mizukage's tyranny. Thinking of Juzo, Byakuya wasted no time and immediately left the Akatsuki base. Juzo was currently under Nagato's command, most likely stationed at some construction site in the Land of Rain, dedicating his youth and effort to the country's development. Speaking of how Nagato recruited Juzo, Byakuya could only say that fate played a significant role in bringing them together. During one of Nagato's missions, he and Juzo encountered a group of bandits simultaneously. After joining forces to take them down, Nagato extended an invitation to Juzo. At the time, Juzo had no particular destination in mind, so he casually agreed to Nagato's request. It wasn't until he arrived at Hidden Rain Village that Juzo realized something was off, but by then, he had unwittingly become a member of the Akatsuki. Not long after, Byakuya arrived at a large hydraulic project site in Hidden Rain Village. Nagato was using Almighty Push and Universal Pull to move bricks, while Juzo was employing water-style techniques to transfer accumulated water into nearby ditches. The two worked seamlessly together, as if they'd been partners for years. After patiently waiting for Nagato and Juzo to finish their work, Byakuya approached them with a smile and greeted them. "Nagato, long time no see. How have you been lately?" Nagato nodded, then turned to face Byakuya with a frown. "I'm doing fine. But what are you doing here? You've always avoided construction sites. Just came to check on you." Byakuya rolled his eyes and whistled. Nagato shot him a wary look, then sighed helplessly. "It's usually Yahiko and I who come to you. There's no way you'd actively seek us out. Spit it out. What's the real reason you're here?" Realizing Nagato had seen through his facade, Byakuya dropped the act and pointed at Juzo. "Nagato, I need to make a trip to Hidden Mist Village soon, but I'm short on a guide. I heard you have a subordinate from Hidden Mist Village, so I came to borrow him." "Borrow him?" Nagato's expression shifted before he asked. "What are you planning to do in Hidden Mist Village? You're not thinking about making a move on the Mizukage, are you? Every time you visit another village, something bad happens." Byakuya was momentarily at a loss for words after hearing that. It seemed Nagato wasn't wrong. Trouble did seem to follow Byakuya wherever he went. When he visited Hidden Leaf Village, the Ninetales incident occurred. When he went to Hidden Sand Village, the Kazekage ended up being replaced. Seeing Byakuya fall silent, Nagato knew he'd hit the mark. It was clear Byakuya had big plans for his trip to Hidden Mist Village, likely targeting the village itself. But since Byakuya's actions were always for the Akatsuki's benefit, with the entire organization ultimately reaping the rewards, Nagato couldn't exactly object. After a light sigh, Nagato said, "Fine, Byakuya. I'll leave Juzo to you. He's a good man, though not particularly strong. Just make sure your plans don't get him caught up in unnecessary trouble." Juzo. A good man who isn't particularly strong. Byakuya didn't know how to respond to that. Since when had Juzo Biwa, a member of the Seven Ninja Swordsmen, been considered a good man? And as for his strength, Juzo was at least at the level of an elite Jonin, which was certainly not weak. But compared to Nagato, it was true Juzo wasn't on the same level. Nagato and Byakuya were undoubtedly the two strongest members of the Akatsuki. Nagato waved his hand and walked over to Juzo. Before letting Juzo accompany Byakuya on his mission, he wanted to teach him a few things to avoid unnecessary trouble. Juzo, who was already thoroughly confused, had no idea what was going on. Having spent most of his time with Nagato, he wasn't familiar with Sasori, but he did have some impression of Byakuya. Though Byakuya was officially just a department head in Hidden Rain Village, his strength was formidable, and his status in the village seemed to subtly surpass that of Yahiko, the leader. In reality, Byakuya was the true power behind the scenes. Chapter 334, Zabuza Momiki. Half an hour later, Byakuya and Juzo left the construction site together. After hearing about Byakuya's exploits from Nagato, Juzo couldn't hide his shock as he glanced at the seemingly harmless young man beside him. This youth was not only one of the most fearsome individuals in Hidden Rain Village but possibly in the entire shinobi world. 8 or 9 years ago, during the Akatsuki's confrontation with Hanzo of the Salamander and Denzo, it was Byakuya who stepped forward and defeated Hanzo. In other words, Byakuya had already reached the pinnacle of the shinobi world nearly a decade ago. As for his current strength, even Nagato wasn't sure of its limits. Additionally, according to Nagato, the recent change in leadership in Hidden Sand Village was also connected to Byakuya. Before Byakuya arrived, the fourth Kazekage had been the supreme leader of Hidden Sand Village. Now, however, the fourth Kazekage was a fugitive, wanted by his own village. If Byakuya truly had such capabilities, then this trip to Hidden Mist Village. Juzo didn't dare to continue that line of thought. Swallowing nervously, he silently followed Byakuya, unable to imagine what awaited Hidden Mist Village in the near future. Even though he was an exile, Juzo had spent many years in Hidden Mist Village and still held some feelings for the village. Noticing Juzo's thoughts, Byakuya turned his head, smiling as he said, Juzo, since we have time, why don't you tell me about the structure of Hidden Mist Village's Jonin and its power dynamics? Juzo's body stiffened, and he hesitated before asking. Byakuya-sama, are you really planning to take action against Hidden Mist Village and the 4th Mizukage, as Nagato-sama suggested? Byakuya glanced at Juzo and replied. Why is everyone so convinced I'm targeting Hidden Mist Village? Juzo didn't hold back and explained. Nagato-sama mentioned some details about you. Since you've previously made moves against Hidden Sand Village, it's likely you have similar plans for Hidden Mist Village this time. Besides, a powerful shinobi like you wouldn't leave your base without a significant reason. Nagato sure trusts you a lot, sharing such intel. With a soft snort, Byakuya fixed his gaze on Juzo. Yes, I'm planning to make a move on Hidden Mist Village. But you're an exile now, a part of Hidden Rain Village. What does Hidden Mist Village have to do with you anymore? Juzo fell silent. He had never been good with words. Seeing this, Byakuya knew he needed to work on Juzo's mindset. Though Juzo had once been overwhelmed by Might Guy's 8 gates, he was still one of the 7 ninja swordsmen, a key figure in Hidden Mist Village. Smiling faintly, Byakuya asked. Juzo, you've spent quite a bit of time under Nagato's command. What do you think of the Akatsuki? After a moment of contemplation, Juzo replied. The Akatsuki is the best organization I've ever encountered. No other group has made ninjutsu accessible and shared it with the common people like this. Hearing this, Byakuya followed up. And what about Hidden Mist Village? How does it compare to the Akatsuki? Juzo answered without hesitation. Hidden Mist Village is far inferior to the Akatsuki. Though he had grown up in Hidden Mist Village, Juzo's attachment was to the people and memories of the past. Those moments of camaraderie when comrades went easy on each other during the harsh exams. Not to the village itself. To put it bluntly, Hidden Mist Village was the worst place in the entire shinobi world. During his time as an exile, Juzo had traveled to many places and encountered various shinobi organizations. Some were mild, others harsh, but none were as extreme as Hidden Mist Village. He could never forget the feeling of killing an opponent during his graduation exam, nor could he forget the pain of executing his own subordinates. Every rule in Hidden Mist Village was devoid of humanity, steeped in cruelty and bloodshed. Compared to that, the Akatsuki was practically a paradise. This was the reason he had chosen to join Hidden Rain Village. Recovering from his grim memories, Juzo turned to Byakuya with a serious expression and asked. Byakuya-sama, are you going to Hidden Mist Village this time to save the village? Staring at Juzo, who had undergone such a dramatic shift in attitude within a short time, Byakuya froze for a moment. In a world rife with chaos and brutality, the Akatsuki organization, despite its flaws, was a paradise compared to Hidden Mist Village. Fueled by Yahiko and Nagato's charismatic persuasion, Juzo's devotion to the Akatsuki was, in hindsight, entirely understandable. Faced with Juzo's fervent enthusiasm, Byakuya shook his head slightly and replied. I'm not going to Hidden Mist Village to save it. Only the ninjas of Hidden Mist Village can save their village. I can provide assistance, but I won't take action on my own initiative. If you have any good ideas, feel free to share them. Hearing this, Juzo's expression dimmed. This approach was very much in line with the Akatsuki's principles. If the Akatsuki were truly heading to Hidden Mist Village to conquer and wreak havoc, Juzo wasn't sure which side he would end up on. However, even with Byakuya leaving the choice in his hands, Juzo found himself powerless to come up with a way to save the village. Several years ago, when the 4th Mizukage had issued the order to exterminate the bloodline clans, Juzo had merely stood by and watched as the chaos unfolded. In the end, he chose not to intervene, quietly leaving the Land of Water. Now, with no viable plans and no real desire to return to Hidden Mist Village, Juzo found himself unsure of his place. Seeing the troubled look on Juzo's face, Byakuya didn't press further. Internally, however, he decided that Juzo was not a viable candidate to replace the 4th Mizukage, Yagura Karatachi. After half a month of travel, filled with stops and delays, Byakuya and Juzo finally reached the eastern coastline of the Land of Fire. All that remained was to board a ship to reach the Land of Water. During these 2 weeks, they had scoured the black markets for intelligence on the Land of Water. Following years of relentless purges, the bloodline clans within the Land of Water had been almost completely annihilated. Countless Hidden Mist Village shinobi had been implicated, many becoming rogue ninjas scattered across different nations. Along the way, Byakuya and Juzo encountered several Hidden Mist Village defectors. However, none of them had the resolve or spirit Byakuya sought, and he dismissed them all as unworthy of becoming pawns in his plans. At their final stop, a black market in the eastern Land of Fire, Byakuya's eyes caught a familiar name on a bounty poster. His lips curled into a smile as he silently finalized his choice. Zabuza Momaki, S-rank rogue ninja from Hidden Mist Village. specialist in silent killing techniques. Wanted for attempting to assassinate the Mizukage, standing beside Byakuya, Juzo also noticed the bounty. His expression shifted subtly upon reading Zabuza Momoki's crime, and a look of quiet satisfaction appeared on his face. After all these years under the reign of the fourth Mizukage, someone had finally dared to make an attempt on his life. It was something Juzo had long dreamed of doing, but never dared to attempt. Chapter 335, we finally meet when Byakuya and Juzo Biwa found Zabuza. He was under siege by a squad of hidden mist village Anbu. From their chakra levels, it seemed that this Anbu squad's strength was around that of Chunin, with only the team leader barely reaching the chakra capacity of a Jonin. Such a squad was no match for Zabuza, and the outcome had already been determined from the start. Realizing this, Byakuya and Juzo decided not to reveal themselves immediately. They hid in the shadows to observe Zabuza and assess what kind of shinobi he truly was. Unaware of the hidden observers, the hidden mist village squad formed a battle formation, surrounding Zabuza. Their eyes carried a mix of complex emotions. Zabuza was a well-known figure in Hidden Mist Village. During his time at the academy, he had already displayed astonishing talent. His infamous reputation was cemented during the graduation exam, where he killed every single one of his peers, leaving Hidden Mist Village without dozens of fresh genin. This act caused an uproar in the village and sparked heated discussions. While Zabuza's actions technically adhered to the rules of the graduation exam, only shinobi who emerged victorious in life and death battles were deemed suitable under the Village of the Bloody Mist standard. It posed a serious problem for the village. Zabuza's actions had harmed Hidden Mist Village's interests. If every student were to follow his example, Hidden Mist Village would run out of shinobi in less than 5 years. After much deliberation, the higher-ups in Hidden Mist Village ultimately abolished the rule that allowed students to kill their peers during graduation exams. In this way, though Zabuza had slaughtered dozens of his classmates, his actions indirectly saved countless future academy students in Hidden Mist Village. In this regard, many shinobi owed Zabuza a debt of gratitude. After graduating, Zabuza continued to excel. In his first year in the Anbu, he managed to assassinate a special Jonin from Hidden Leaf Village, earning him a nomination as a potential member of the 7 Ninja Swordsmen of the Mist. Had it not been for Zabuza's attempt to assassinate the 4th Mizukage, he would likely already be one of the 7 Ninja Swordsmen. At this thought, the Hidden Mist Village squad leader addressed Zabuza. Zabuza-sama, come back to the village with us. Although you attempted to assassinate the Mizukage, it must have been due to deception by others. The Mizukage highly values talent. If you sincerely apologize, I believe the Mizukage will forgive your mistake. We truly don't wish to fight you. Upon hearing this, Zabuza sneered as if he had just heard the most ridiculous joke. He let out a few cold chuckles before replying. Deceived into assassinating the Mizukage? The attempt was entirely my decision. Ever since Yagura Karatachi became Mizukage, he has never issued an order beneficial to the village. Such a worthless leader has no right to hold the title of Mizukage. Zabuza tilted his head and let out a menacing smile. My last assassination attempt failed because I wasn't strong enough. Once I find the right opportunity, I will return to the village and challenge Yagura again. But as for you all, after tailing me for so long, do you really think I won't kill you? Hearing these words, the Hidden Mist Village squad exchanged glances before launching an attack on Zabuza, striking from the front, sides, and rear simultaneously. The Anbu's attacks weren't flashy or concerned with honor but were designed to efficiently eliminate their target. A well-trained Chunin-level Anbu squad had even managed to assassinate Jonin from the 5 great shinobi villages in the past. After all, even Jonin couldn't maintain a state of constant vigilance. As a former Anbu, Zabuza understood their tactics perfectly. He knew that being caught in their trap would be dangerous. Quickly forming hand seals, Zabuza performed the hidden mist technique. Within the span of a single breath, the surrounding forest was shrouded in thick mist. This dense mist, infused with chakra, obstructed both vision and certain chakra sensing techniques. Taking a deep breath, Zabuza unsheathed his short sword and moved like a shadow through the mist, picking off the Hidden Mist Village squad one by one. While the Anbu members also knew the hidden mist technique, their proficiency and mastery were far inferior to Zabuza's. Amid muffled sounds within the fog, one Hidden Mist Village Anbu member after another fell to the ground. Glancing at the unconscious Hidden Mist Village Anbu on the ground, Zabuza gritted his teeth. He didn't want to kill his former comrades, but if he didn't teach them a lesson, they would keep following him like flies, causing endless trouble. After erasing his footprints and masking his scent, Zabuza slipped into the forest. Not far behind, Byakuya and Juzo watched Zabuza disappear into the distance. They exchanged a glance and used the transformation jutsu to disguise themselves as Hidden Mist Village Anbu before pursuing him. Tracking Zabuza's position, Byakuya chuckled and said, "Juzo, it seems the demon Zabuza isn't as ruthless as the rumors say. he spared those pursuers. Juzo looked in the direction Zabuza had gone, lost in thought. Seeing Zabuza reminded him of his younger self. Back then, he too was bold and spirited like Zabuza. But over time, he had grown quiet and withdrawn, avoiding problems instead of confronting them head-on. After following Zabuza for an hour, Byakuya and Juzo arrived at a valley. In the middle of the valley stood a small hunter's cabin. Zabuza pushed the door open and walked inside. A boy dressed in a ninja outfit poked his head out, scanned his surroundings, then closed the door behind Zabuza. Noticing a wound on Zabuza, the boy's face filled with concern. "Zabuza-sama, you're hurt. Let me bandage you right away. Did you run into enemies? Were they pursuers from Hidden Mist Village?" Zabuza nodded and replied. "You're right, but those Hidden Mist Village pursuers were no match for me. I took care of them all in just a minute." "Just a minute?" Haku looked surprised, then lowered his head in self-blame. "But you still got hurt. If it weren't for having to take care of me, you wouldn't have to hide out in a place like this." Zabuza frowned, glaring at Haku. "Who do you think you are? You're nothing but a tool to me. Don't question my decisions. Until you grow into a proper tool, I won't allow anything to happen to you. Now go make me some food. I'm starving." Hearing this, Haku quickly nodded and headed toward the kitchen. As he walked out of the cabin, a faint smile appeared on his face. Though Zabuza-sama always acted harsh, he was actually a very kind person. Without Zabuza-sama, Haku would have starved to death on the streets of the Land of Water. Or worse, been hunted down and killed by Hidden Mist Village shinobi for his Genkai, just like his mother. At that moment, Zabuza seemed to think of something and called out. "By the way, once the food is ready, take some to that guy. But make sure it's the lowest quality portion. He needs to learn his lesson for disobeying my orders." "Understood, Zabuza-sama," Haku replied. After promising Zabuza, Haku pushed open the cabin door. To his surprise, two ninja dressed as Hidden Mist Village Anbu were standing outside. Their eyes ignored him entirely and locked onto Zabuza, who was sitting on a chair inside. The demon Zabuza. We finally meet. Chapter 336, Kubikiribicho. Upon seeing Byakuya and Juzo, Haku's face immediately changed, and he reached out to close the wooden door, but the door was swiftly removed by Juzo. Seeing this, Haku became flustered. After a quick glance at Zabuza, Haku took out the kunai hidden in his sleeve, preparing to fight with the two intruders and buy time for Zabuza's escape. Juzo noticed Haku's small movement and looked up at him. Once locked onto by Juzo, Haku felt as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. His body began to tremble uncontrollably, and even the kunai was difficult to hold steadily. Quickly, Haku adjusted his mindset. He knew he was no match for these two. But if he used his ice-style Genkai, he could certainly buy time for Zabuza. After all, that was a power praised even by Zabuza himself. While Haku's mind was racing, Zabuza was also staring intently at Byakuya and Juzo. Although the two appeared to be part of the Hidden Mist Village's Anbu, they didn't have the usual strong fishy smell, clearly not being pursuit ninjas from Hidden Mist Village. Also, there weren't any ninjas among them that felt particularly dangerous. Therefore, Zabuza was certain that these two weren't pursuing ninjas from Hidden Mist Village, though he still didn't know who had sent them. Soon, Zabuza noticed Kubikiribicho, the decapitating carving sword, behind Juzo. If he remembered correctly, Kubikiribicho was one of the 7 ninja swords, belonging to Juzo. Could it be that this person was Juzo himself? After a brief moment of hesitation, Zabuza cautiously asked. "Are you Juzo-senpai?" Juzo glanced at Byakuya. After receiving a nod of permission, he answered. "Zabuza, it's been almost a year since we last met. I didn't expect you to dare challenge the Mizukage. I must say, I'm surprised." With that, Juzo dispelled his transformation jutsu. Upon seeing the familiar figure, Zabuza sighed and said. "I didn't want to challenge the Mizukage, but Kagura Karatachi has completely stopped managing things these past years. I had no choice but to challenge him and try to become the new Mizukage. However, I just didn't expect Kagura Karatachi to be so powerful. In front of him, I felt like a chunin facing a jonin, with no chance of victory." Pausing, Zabuza then asked. "By the way, where have you been recently? Your defection caused quite a stir, and you're probably still thinking of returning to the village, aren't you?" Upon hearing this, Juzo froze, unsure of how to respond to Zabuza. Zabuza, sensing Juzo's hesitation, was puzzled, but didn't press further. Ninja with a village and rogue ninjas were entirely different concepts. The former, although they might have to divide the mission rewards with their village or perform tasks for the village without pay, at least had the backing of a village. Rogue ninjas, however, had to remain on constant alert at all times. The long-term tension eventually took a toll, and the mental strain would break anyone. As Zabuza and Juzo caught up, Byakuya and Haku were sizing each other up. Haku found the young man in front of him quite mysterious. Although he didn't seem very old, there was a calmness about him that didn't match his age. Whether outside or inside the wooden house, the other hadn't shown any signs of nervousness. While Haku was trying to figure out Byakuya's identity, Byakuya had already gathered most of the information about him. Judging by the chakra signature, Byakuya figured the youth who resembled a girl must be Haku. After all, there weren't many ninjas in the ninja world who were both cute boys and had the Ice-style KK Genkai. Ice-style was a relatively strong bloodline limit in the ninja world. Although from the original work, Haku's abilities appeared to be at the upper Chunin level, the potential of Ice-style was definitely more than that. Any ninja with a bloodline limit, as long as they developed it properly, could reach the strength of an elite Jonin. Considering the interaction between various nature transformations, Haku's Ice-style would be extremely effective in the Land of Water. This was perhaps one of the reasons why Haku's clan, the Yuki clan, had suffered. From his time in Hidden Mist Village to his life as a rogue ninja. After half an hour of conversation, Zabuza turned to Byakuya and said to Juzo. Juzo-senpai, this person must be a new subordinate of yours, right? Is he a ninja from Hidden Mist Village? Hearing this, Juzo broke into a cold sweat and quickly explained. Zabuza, he's not my subordinate, nor is he from Hidden Mist Village. Our relationship isn't that simple. Zabuza, confused, glanced at Byakuya and then at Juzo. Not your subordinate, not from Hidden Mist Village. Then how did you two end up together, and why did you bring him here to find me? Could it be that you're here because of him? Juzo hesitated for a moment, then, receiving Byakuya's permission, spoke. The reason we came to find you is because of Byakuya-sama's request. You asked me where I've been recently, didn't you? I've been working for Byakuya-sama. Byakuya. Zabuza found that name vaguely familiar. However, for someone like you, one of the 7 ninja swordsmen, to become someone else's subordinate, what's going on here? Did you give up your pride as a ninja to become a bodyguard for a noble or a wealthy merchant? After pondering for a moment, Zabuza suddenly became alert and looked at Juzo, saying. Byakuya? Isn't that the name of a jonin from Hidden Rain Village? Juzo-senpai, you actually joined Hidden Rain Village? How could you join that village? For Zabuza, it was acceptable for him to be a rogue ninja. He could accept commissions from the black market to survive. But he would never accept joining any other ninja village besides Hidden Mist Village. While he had become a rogue ninja, it was simply because he couldn't stand the current leadership of the Hidden Mist Village. Juzo joining Hidden Rain Village was undoubtedly the greatest form of betrayal. Byakuya, leaving Haku's side, spoke deliberately to Zabuza. Juzo didn't join Hidden Rain Village. He is now a member of the Akatsuki organization. Akatsuki? Isn't that an organization under Hidden Rain Village's control? What's the difference? Zabuza turned his attention to Byakuya. He understood that Byakuya was the real reason he had been approached, and the other's identity as a rain ninja made him wary. Byakuya smiled and said. Of course, the Akatsuki is different from Hidden Rain Village. Hidden Rain Village is just one of the many ninja villages under the Akatsuki's influence. There are several others, and in the future, even the 5 great shinobi countries will be included. Hearing this, Zabuza chuckled dismissively. There might indeed be several smaller ninja villages under the Akatsuki, but the 5 great shinobi countries were far from being subordinate to any organization like Akatsuki. Not even the god of ninjas or the Shura of the ninja world back in the day could have completely overshadowed the 5 great shinobi countries. With that thought in mind, Zabuza looked at Juzo with a more mocking gaze. He sighed softly and slowly spoke. Juzo-senpai, I thought you would be living better than I am, but now it seems you're in a worse situation. Not only have you become a rogue ninja, but you've also abandoned your original ideals as a Hidden Mist Village ninja. Narrowing his eyes, Zabuza grinned. I'm very disappointed in you. Chapter 337, The 4th Mizukage is a puppet. Zabuza's words pierced Juzo's heart like steel needles, making him begin to doubt whether he had betrayed himself and Hidden Mist Village. But even if he hadn't joined the Akatsuki, he still didn't have the ability to change the current situation of Hidden Mist Village. Since joining the Akatsuki, he had come into contact with people like Nagato and Yahiko, individuals who had dreams and were working toward them. Spending time with them, he felt fulfilled every day. Glancing at Juzo, Byakuya turned his attention back to Zabuza, sneering. Joining the Akatsuki was the best decision Juzo could have made. He is transformed from a wandering, aimless ghost into a person striving for a better future. As for you, Zabuza, after you defected from Hidden Mist Village, what meaningful things have you done other than playing house with these Hidden Mist Village Anbu ninjas? Have you ever thought about how to increase your strength or how to defeat the 4th Mizukage? Hearing this, Zabuza fell into deep silence, unable to respond. During the days after his failed attempt to challenge the Mizukage, He had done nothing of consequence. Aside from picking up Haku and the kid with the Shikatsumiyaku on his travels, he had simply been outsmarting the Hidden Mist Village's pursuit team. He had never once thought about defeating the fourth Mizukage. The Mizukage's strength was so overwhelming that it had robbed him of the courage to even try. No matter how hard he worked, he knew he would never be able to defeat the fourth Mizukage. Seeing Zabuza sink into despair, Haku couldn't help but speak up. That's not true. Zabura-sama has always wanted to return to Hidden Mist Village. He's been trying to change the village's current state, but the timing just isn't right. When will the timing be right? Should we wait for Kagura Karatachi to die of old age? Byakuya said, glancing at Haku with mockery, cutting off Haku's words. Now even Haku didn't know what to say. Haku had never witnessed the fourth Mizukage's strength, but he knew how powerful Zabuza was. An enemy that even Zabuza couldn't deal with seemed like it could only be defeated if the opponent naturally grew old and died. No matter how hard Haku tried, it was difficult to imagine surpassing Zabura-sama. After a long silence, Zabuza looked up at Byakuya, weary as he spoke. I admit that I'm a useless fool who couldn't even defeat the Mizukage, but you, Byakuya, didn't go through all this trouble to come here just to mock my failures, did you? Of course not. I didn't come here to mock you. It's just that you don't show enough respect for my subordinates. After a brief pause, Byakuya continued. Since joining the Akatsuki, Juzo hasn't been carrying out assassination or bodyguard missions, but his contributions to the Land of Rain are well recognized. He's assisted Nagato in building roads and reservoirs, and he's helped civilians. He's one of the Akatsuki's exemplary members. A ninja can find many ways to realize their value, not just by pledging allegiance to a decaying ninja village. You Hidden Mist Village ninjas pour your hearts and souls into Hidden Mist Village, but how does the village treat you? Hearing this, Zabuza turned to Byakuya and said, I admit you make a good point, but that's not why you came to find me, right? I'm good only at assassination. Other jobs aren't suited for me. Finding me for this was a mistake on your part. Byakuya gently shook his head. I didn't come to find you because Hidden Rain Village lacks a good worker. I came because I want you to assassinate the Mizukage. I want to invite you to join us for a mission. Assassinate the Mizukage. You want to assassinate the fourth Mizukage, Kagura Karatachi? And you want to invite me to join? Do you really think I would accept your invitation and join you in assassinating the Mizukage? At this point, Zabuza laughed, then fixed his gaze on Byakuya, saying, I can understand why Juzo would want to assassinate the Mizukage, but why does your Akatsuki organization want to kill the fourth Mizukage? As far as Zabuza was concerned, he didn't think Byakuya had anything for a weakened village like Hidden Mist Village. The blood mist policy imposed by the fourth Mizukage has severely weakened the Hidden Mist Village's strength. Isn't that exactly what you want to see? Aren't you afraid of the repercussions if the assassination fails and it leads to the Hidden Mist Village seeking revenge? At this point, Zabuza grinned. I know you all want to become one of the 5 great shinobi villages, but you're caught between the Hidden Sand Village, Hidden Stones Village, and Hidden Leaf Village. Do you really think it's so easy to take on Hidden Mist Village? Zabuza, though often impulsive and reckless, was no fool. He regularly analyzed the situation in the ninja world. He understood that while Hidden Mist Village was in turmoil, if the fourth Mizukage were assassinated, the originally fragmented Hidden Mist Village would quickly unite and resist any external enemies. This was something the other 4 great ninja villages would never want to see, which was why the Hidden Mist Village had never faced an invasion in recent years. After listening to Zabuza's analysis, Byakuya couldn't help but think that this Jonin still had some skill, being able to accurately analyze Hidden Mist Village's predicament and why the other ninja villages weren't intervening. After a brief moment of contemplation, Byakuya replied. The Akatsuki has never had the intention to replace Hidden Mist Village. The only possibility is for the Hidden Mist Village to become one of Akatsuki's subordinate villages. As for why we want to target the fourth Mizukage, there are many reasons. The chaotic state of the Hidden Mist Village makes it unsuitable for trade, which severely impacts Akatsuki's income. Also, the person behind the fourth Mizukage and the Hidden Mist Village ninja has some past issues with me, and I don't want him to continue controlling Hidden Mist Village. The mention of the chaotic state of Hidden Mist Village affecting Akatsuki's trade, along with the personal conflict between Byakuya and a person controlling the fourth Mizukage, left Zabuza perplexed. The first part made sense, but the second part left him confused. What did Byakuya mean by having issues with the person behind the fourth Mizukage? Could the fourth Mizukage actually be a puppet controlled by someone else? After a moment of thought, Zabuza began to think Byakuya's words might hold some truth. Before Zabuza graduated from the Ninja Academy, Kagura Karatachi had a completely different style. He had opposed the blood mist policy and had even contributed to its abolition when the mist exam was removed. However, after Kagura Karatachi became the fourth Mizukage, everything changed. He not only reinstated the blood mist policy but also purged the bloodline clans within the village. Time and time again, these purges had led Hidden Mist Village to the brink of fragmentation. Not only did the ninja clans lose support, but even the 7 ninja swordsmen and the Anbu had left the village. Despite all this, very few people within Hidden Mist Village had ever doubted Kagura Karatachi's identity as the Mizukage. One reason was that Kagura Karatachi possessed the strongest strength in the entire village, making it hard to believe that someone so powerful could be controlled by others. Another reason was that throughout the history of the Hidden Mist Village, every Mizukage, no matter their previous personality, would enact the blood mist policy once they became Mizukage. Perhaps the blood mist policy was just what suited the Hidden Mist Village, or perhaps the Mizukage feared being overthrown. Zabuza was one of the rare few who had sensed that something was off with the fourth Mizukage and attempted to challenge him. Unfortunately, he was defeated in a single encounter and didn't even have the time to probe or question the Mizukage's true nature. After a long pause, Zabuza spoke up. Do you have any evidence that the fourth Mizukage is being controlled by someone else? Chapter 338, Zabuza's Decision Evidence. Byakuya looked at Zabuza and said with a smile. What kind of evidence do you need? The policies that the fourth Mizukage has enacted over the years are the best proof. No matter how incompetent a Mizukage is, he wouldn't implement such absurd policies. Byakuya then sighed. I really can't understand why your Hidden Mist Village has a blood mist policy. Honestly, I don't know either. Zabuza thought to himself before continuing. The orders given by the fourth Mizukage are indeed suspicious, but with how strong he is, how could he possibly be controlled by another shinobi? Seeing that Zabuza was still unwilling to believe him, Byakuya continued. If the fourth Mizukage wasn't being controlled, then why has he remained inside the Mizukage building all these years? Is it really that hard to leave? Zabuza fell silent for a moment because Byakuya's words made a lot of sense. During his years in the Anbu, he had rarely seen the fourth Mizukage. Even when he did, the Mizukage was always inside the Mizukage building. While it was true that the Mizukage building was the place where the Mizukage handled official affairs, no leader would stay in their office all the time. Besides, many major incidents happened in the village in recent years. First, the Six-Tails Jinchuriki left the village and went to live on a secluded island. Then, several members of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist also left the village. Now, only Maingetsu Hazuki and Kisame remained in the village among the 7 ninja swordsmen. Even after so many major events, the fourth Mizukage still chose to remain behind closed doors. That alone was highly suspicious. Hearing Byakuya's reasoning, Juzobiwa also fell into deep thought. He, too, found the fourth Mizukage extremely suspicious, as if he had been controlled by another shinobi. Otherwise, he wouldn't have made such a series of incomprehensible decisions. Bringing their thoughts back to the conversation, Zabuza and Juzo both looked at Byakuya. Byakuya-sama, you just said you know the shinobi controlling the Mizukage. So, who exactly is the said culprit? Byakuya didn't beat around the bush and answered directly. It's the man in the mask. Do you remember the Nine-Tails incident that broke out in Hidden Leaf Village? The fourth Hokage and the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, Kushina Uzumaki, both died because of him. For years, Hidden Leaf Village has been investigating the masked man, but they never would have imagined that he was hiding in Hidden Mist Village, controlling the fourth Mizukage. Pausing for a moment, Byakuya looked at Juzo and Zabuza before cracking a joke. With how long that guy has been in power, he's basically the real Mizukage. If you think about it, even though Hidden Mist Village lost to Hidden Leaf Village in the Third Shinobi World War, Hidden Leaf Village's fourth Hokage still ended up dying at the hands of the Mizukage. But neither Juzo nor Zabuza could laugh at Byakuya's dark joke. If the mastermind had truly been controlling the Mizukage for all these years, then calling him the real Mizukage wouldn't be wrong. However, even if Hidden Mist Village had played a role in the fourth Hokage's death, they had gained nothing from it. Hidden Mist Village was still isolated overseas, while Hidden Leaf Village remained the strongest shinobi village. Besides, that joke wasn't funny at all. After organizing his thoughts, Zabuza spoke up. If the fourth Mizukage was really being controlled by the masked man, then I wrongly blamed him. But what I'm even more curious about is that what's the grudge between you and the masked man? Byakuya, like an actor stepping into his role, instantly put on a serious expression and said, the masked man's fight against the fourth Hokage has nothing to do with me, but the fact that he caused Kushina Uzumaki's death. That's on him. Just for that alone, my conflict with him is irreconcilable. What does Uzumaki Kushina have to do with you? Zabuza was still somewhat doubtful. However, Juzobiwa seemed to understand something. He stepped closer and whispered into Zabuza's ear. Byakuya-sama is a descendant of the Uzumaki clan, and Kushina was one of the few remaining Uzumaki in the shinobi world. Hearing this, Zabuza finally grasped the enmity between Byakuya and the masked man. Even so, he was still hesitant about accepting Byakuya's invitation to infiltrate Hidden Mist Village and assassinate the Mizukage. After a long period of contemplation, Zabuza got straight to the point. I can go with you to deal with the Mizukage and the mastermind behind him. But I'm curious. After exposing and eliminating the masked man, what do you plan to do with Hidden Mist Village? At this, Byakuya looked at Zabuza and replied, that depends on your strength. If you and your people can handle the fourth Mizukage and the masked man, then Akatsuki will establish an equal alliance with Hidden Mist Village. But if you fail and require my assistance, then Hidden Mist Village will become a subordinate organization of Akatsuki. Byakuya's terms made Zabuza tensed up. Becoming a subordinate of Akatsuki. How is that any different from being controlled by the masked man? Why should I even bother dealing with the fourth Mizukage and the masked man then? Without changing his expression, Byakuya answered, at the very least, Akatsuki won't enforce the Blood Mist policy or interfere with Hidden Mist Village's normal development. The only condition is that, in the future, if you wish to launch a war, you will need our approval. I'd say that's quite a generous deal. Byakuya then raised a finger before continuing. Most importantly, I won't force you to agree. If you refuse, I'll simply find another shinobi who will. Hidden Mist Village isn't lacking in those who desire to become the Mizukage. Zabuza spoke in a low voice. You're that confident you can defeat both the fourth Mizukage and the masked man? Even if you do, you won't be able to appoint the new Mizukage. Furthermore, I don't think the newly appointed Mizukage will agree to your conditions either. You're being overly confident. Overly confident? Byakuya chuckled, then said. If a hero who saves the village still can't become the Mizukage, then that just means I misjudge the people. As for whether the new Mizukage will honor my terms, I highly doubt they'd refuse. After all, if I have the power to defeat the masked man and the Mizukage, I also have the power to destroy Hidden Mist Village. Looking at Byakuya's smirking yet unreadable expression, a sense of unease welled up in Zabuza's heart. He didn't know whether to accept Byakuya's invitation, and he found himself caught in a difficult decision. Byakuya, noticing Zabuza's hesitation, dropped his smile and said, Juzo and I will be here for half a day. So, in the meantime, think it over carefully. Will you continue to rot in the shadows, or will you stand with me, overthrow the Mizukage, and wield your blade in rebellion? With that, Byakuya glanced at Juzo and left the small wooden hut. Juzo opened his mouth as if to say something to Zabuza, but upon meeting Byakuya's gaze, he silently followed him out of the hut. In just a few seconds, the dimly lit hut was left with only two people. Hiku and Zabuza. Zabuza looked at the two figures outside before turning his gaze to Hiku. Then, in a voice only he could hear, he murmured to himself, should I continue rotting away in the shadows? Or should I go with them and challenge the Mizukage and the masked man? Chapter 339, Hidden Mist Village. After leaving the wooden hut, Byakuya and Juzobiwa found a random place to sit and wait for Zabuza's answer. Reflecting on the earlier conversation, Juzo couldn't help but ask curiously. Byakuya-sama, why did you invite Zabuza to hunt down the Mizukage with you? With your strength, you could do it alone, couldn't you? Byakuya looked at Juzo and raised a finger. I do have the power to defeat the Mizukage. But as the leader of Akatsuki, if I were the one to personally take him down, it would undoubtedly spark conflict between Akatsuki and Hidden Mist Village. I'd rather not get entangled in such trouble for now. Juzo instinctively nodded, then continued. But I'm also a member of the 7 Ninja Swordsmen. Wouldn't it be simpler if I were the one to expose the 4th Mizukage? Halfway through his sentence, Juzo fell silent. He had realized why Byakuya chose Zabuza instead of him. Unlike Zabuza, he lacked the resolve to raise his blade against the Mizukage. Byakuya shook his head and walked up to Juzo with a smile. You and Zabuza are different. You are already a part of Akatsuki, and as its leader, I can't stand by and watch my members walk into danger. Juzo's body tensed, his eyes widening in shock. He had barely interacted with Byakuya before, yet the leader of Akatsuki genuinely regarded him as one of his own. The thought surprised him greatly. Byakuya patted Juzo's shoulder before standing up. Don't just stand there. While we wait for Zabuza's answer, we should make use of our time. Let's go meet the other child he took in. Zabuza took in another child? Juzo was puzzled but followed behind Byakuya. Without explaining further, Byakuya used his chakra sensing abilities to track their way to a cave. Inside, there were only a few simple blankets and clothes. Sitting on a stone bed was a pale-skinned boy with equally white hair. Another pretty boy? Does Zabuza have a thing for collecting beautiful kids? Byakuya mused to himself. He then walked toward the white-haired boy. Just as he was about to get close, the boy's eyes suddenly snapped open. In an instant, the boy vanished from his spot and lunged at Byakuya. Juzo reacted immediately, drawing his executioner's blade to block the attack, completely cutting off the boy's path to Byakuya. Byakuya raised a hand, signaling Juzo to stand down. He then turned to the white-haired boy and said, "You must be Kimimaro Kaguya, the last heir of the Shikatsu Myaku, Dead Bone Pulse." At those words, Kimimaro's expression became even more alert. His voice was cold as he asked, "I don't know you. How do you know my name and clan? And why are you here?" "I came to find Zabuza." Byakuya looked at Kimimaro and added with a smile, "I didn't expect that while searching for Zabuza, I'd run into both a Kaguya and a Yuki clan descendant. Quite the lucky day. Kimimaro is from the Kaguya clan, and Haku is from the Yuki clan?" Juzo was taken aback. He was no stranger to these bloodlines. He had once worked alongside shinobi from both the Shikatsu Myaku and Ice-style clans. But after the purges in Hidden Mist Village, very few bloodline limit users remained. Kimimaro narrowed his eyes upon hearing Byakuya's words. "You're looking for Zabuza. You must be from Hidden Mist Village." When his gaze fell on the headbands worn by Byakuya and Juzo, his killing intent surged. No matter how naive he was, he knew that the shinobi of Hidden Mist Village were his enemies. His entire clan had been slaughtered by them. Most importantly, Zabuza's enemies were also from Hidden Mist Village. With that in mind, Kimimaro no longer held back. Activating his Shikatsu Myaku, he launched an attack on Byakuya and Juzo. Seeing this, Juzo immediately raised his executioner's blade. Although he sympathized with bloodline users who had suffered the purges, he was still a shinobi. And as a shinobi, if anyone threatened Byakuya, he would retaliate without hesitation. That was his duty. Juzo moved quickly, but Byakuya was even faster. Before Kimimaro could react, Byakuya had already appeared beside him. With a single punch, he struck Kimimaro's body. Sensing the incoming force, Kimimaro instinctively used his Shikatsu Myaku to form bone armor as a defense. Yet despite the hardened bones emerging from his body, Byakuya showed no hesitation. His punch landed directly on the reinforced skeleton, and with a loud crack, the bones splintered under the impact. Kimimaro gritted his teeth in pain and attempted to counterattack, but Byakuya swiftly restrained him with wood style. The wooden tendrils wrapped around Kimimaro, sapping his chakra. His once hard bones receded back into his body, leaving him immobilized. Kimimaro glared at Byakuya with unwavering defiance, refusing to yield. Byakuya studied Kimimaro and sighed internally. At this point in time, Kimimaro was supposed to be under Orochimaru's wing. Through intense training and experimentation, he had unlocked most of his Shikatsu Myaku's potential, becoming Orochimaru's strongest enforcer. In the original timeline, he had played a crucial role in the Hidden Leaf Village Crush plan, even killing the fourth Kazekage and nearly taking Gaara's life. If this were that version of Kimimaro, he would be at least Kage level, or at the very least, an elite Jonin. But the Kimimaro standing before him now had barely mastered his abilities. At most, he was Chunin level. However, this wasn't necessarily a bad thing. Shikatsu Myaku was one of the strongest bloodline limit in the shinobi world, and even basic mastery of it granted immense power. But it was also a double-edged sword. The stronger a Kaguya became, the shorter their lifespan. Right now, Kimimaro's abilities were still underdeveloped, but that meant his body was healthy. At least, he wouldn't suffer the same tragic fate as in the original timeline. As Byakuya restrained Kimimaro, the commotion drew the attention of Zabuza and Haku. When they arrived and saw Kimimaro bound by wood style, their expressions changed. They didn't know whether Byakuya intended to kill Kimimaro, nor did they understand what had transpired. Hearing footsteps behind him, Byakuya released Kimimaro and turned to Zabuza. "Zabuza, have you made your decision? Will you accept my invitation?" Zabuza looked at Kimimaro, then at Haku. After a moment of silence, he spoke. "Fine. I accept your invitation. But please, spare Haku and Kimimaro. They are both innocent." Kimimaro and Haku's expressions changed. Clenching his fists, Kimimaro gritted his teeth. "Zabuza-sama, leave us and go. We are merely your tools. We have long prepared ourselves to sacrifice for you." Zabuza gritted his teeth and said resolutely. "I've long wanted to counterattack Hidden Mist Village. Training you two was just to use you as tools. Now that I've found more powerful help, you two are no longer needed." While Zabuza, Haku, and Kimimaro were performing an emotional scene, Byakuya felt a bit strange. Hadn't he just been attacked by Kimimaro? Now it seemed like he was the one threatening Zabuza through Kimimaro. Was it because his strength was slightly stronger that he wasn't allowed to defend himself? After pondering for a moment, Byakuya approached Zabuza, grinning. "Welcome to the hunting squad." This is the best choice you've made this year. Also, it was your subordinate who attacked me first. I am as innocent as a fine bird. Kimimaro attacked you first? Zabuza's expression changed as he turned to Kimimaro. Kimimaro, did you attack Byakuya-sama and Juzo-senpai just now? Kimimaro stiffly nodded, making Zabuza's lips twitch. Byakuya and Juzo were no ordinary people. He himself had suppressed his devilish personality in their presence. Yet, Kimimaro was so brave enough to attack them. When he first encountered the wandering Kimimaro by the roadside, he should never have offered help. Though he complained internally, Zabuza didn't openly reprimand Kimimaro. One reason was that he had already ordered Kimimaro to be cautious of all unfamiliar shinobi. The other reason was that he knew Byakuya and Juzo wouldn't let this go easily. Rather than dragging things out, it was better to agree to the proposal and head to Hidden Mist Village sooner. Only after returning to Hidden Mist Village would the doubts in his heart be resolved. Whether the fourth Mizukage had been controlled, and whether there truly was a masked man behind the scenes. Sighing lightly, Zabuza spoke. Byakuya, Juzo-senpai, when should we head to Hidden Mist Village? Tomorrow or today? The sooner, the better. Byakuya replied. Zabuza nodded and turned to Kimimaro and Haku. I'm heading to Hidden Mist Village now. You two are free to go wherever you like. Haku and Kimimaro shook their heads. We're not going anywhere. At this point, Byakuya turned to Zabuza and the others, saying. It's fine to bring them along this time. Anyway, you're no match for the fourth Mizukage. In the future, whether it's you or them, they'll all be my subordinates. Byakuya then beamed a proud smile. I'm very lenient with my subordinates. I can treat bloodline diseases for free. Bloodline disease? Zabuza frowned, then asked. Are you saying Haku and Kimimaro have bloodline diseases? Byakuya nodded. Long-term use of Shikatsunyaku definitely causes bloodline disease. Though Haku's ice style doesn't have a history of bloodline disease, prolonged use of ice style will certainly harm the body. In the end, your training methods are too crude. Byakuya didn't want to explain what he remembers from the anime, so he just decided to offer the help in order to avoid future problems. If they will stay in Akatsuki, they would receive better training than now. With their potential, becoming ninja swordsman level shinobi wouldn't be difficult. Hearing this, Zabuza fell into thought, feeling somewhat tempted by Byakuya's proposal. Although he claimed that Haku and Kimimaro were just tools, the two had been with him for a long time. If his second attempt to assassinate the Mizukage failed, he would have no choice but to entrust them to Byakuya. But if he accepted Byakuya's help, even if the fourth Mizukage were taken down, Hidden Mist Village would still never be truly free. It would only be a change of one puppet master for another. Shaking off the distractions in his mind, Zabuza stopped overthinking. He hadn't even set foot on the land of water yet. Why worry so much? The more he thought, the more passive he would become, which could affect his plans. A few hours later, Byakuya and Zabuza's group boarded a ship to the land of water. After 2 days and nights at sea, they arrived in the land of water. The land of water was an archipelago nation, consisting of hundreds of small islands. Hidden Mist Village was located on the largest of these islands. Once they departed from the port of the land of water and stepped onto its land, Byakuya was hit with a strong scent of the sea. Fishy and salty, which made him feel a bit uncomfortable. The others, however, seemed unaffected. As ninjas of the land of water, they were used to the climate and environment. Coming back to the land of water felt like returning to familiar territory. Continuing their journey on land, they reached the outskirts of Hidden Mist Village in less than a day. Compared to the other great shinobi villages, Hidden Mist Village's buildings had a strong cement feel. Both the Mizukage Tower and the other buildings were made from steel-reinforced concrete, giving it a more modern vibe compared to other villages. It made sense, though. Being near the ocean, Hidden Mist Village couldn't afford to lag behind. After the Fourth Great Ninja War, although Hidden Mist Village didn't develop super technologies like chakra cannons or airborne fortresses, it did have a chakra-powered naval fleet. As they gazed at the distant Hidden Mist Village, Zabuza and Juzo became somewhat lost in thought. It felt as though they had been away for a long time, but it also felt like they had only left for a few hours. The village was the same as they remembered, with little difference. They had once left for various reasons, but now they were back. However, this time, they weren't returning to Hidden Mist Village. Instead, they were challenging the current Mizukage, aiming to overthrow him and the hidden forces controlling him. Byakuya glanced at Zabuza and Juzo, saying lightly, "Stop spacing out. Figure out a way to uncover the true face of the Mizukage. I'm giving you 1 week. After that, I'll handle the fourth Mizukage and the masked man myself. If it affects Hidden Mist Village, that's not my concern. During this time, I'll stay nearby to take care of Haku and Kimimaro." Hearing this, Zabuza and Juzo exchanged glances, then began walking toward the village boundary. They easily crossed the border and entered the heart of Hidden Mist Village. Watching Zabuza and Juzo leave, Byakuya turned to Kimimaro and Hiku. You two have sensitive identities, so don't cause trouble. Just stay here with me and watch the show of assassinating the Mizukage. Kimimaro and Hiku were more concerned about Zabuza's safety after hearing this. But after spending some time with Byakuya, they had a better understanding of his personality. Although Byakuya was powerful, he wasn't a cold, stern person and could even joke around. After a brief pause, Hiku turned to Byakuya and asked, Byakuya-sama, do you think Zabuza-sama can really succeed? Has the fourth Mizukage really been controlled? Byakuya glanced at Hiku before responding. The Mizukage has indeed been controlled, but whether Zabuza can deal with the fourth Mizukage, I'm not sure. Ultimately, it depends on whether the ninjas of Hidden Mist Village want a new Mizukage. Chapter 340, The Former Mentor. After infiltrating Hidden Mist Village, Zabuza and Juzo didn't immediately head for the Mizukage's office. Having failed in his assassination attempt once, Zabuza was well aware of the vast power gap between him and the fourth Mizukage. Even if he and Juzo teamed up this time, they still wouldn't stand a chance. They needed more allies if they wanted to overthrow the fourth Mizukage and uncover the mastermind behind him. Juzo, on the other hand, had no such complex plans. He was simply there to support Zabuza. In his mind, the only ones capable of saving Hidden Mist Village were Akatsuki, specifically Nagato and Byakuya. After changing into fresh clothes at an old hideout, the two of them walked onto Hidden Mist Village's main street. Before taking action, they needed to gather intelligence and see if there was any useful information that could aid their plans. As they strolled down the familiar streets, passing by familiar yet distant villagers and shinobi, their expressions darkened. Hidden Mist Village was not a poor village, but its people lived in terrible conditions. The root cause was the fourth Mizukage's blood mist policy and the purge of bloodline limit clans. These purges had dragged many innocent shinobi and civilians into the chaos. Some simply because they had family connections to bloodline limit users. Towards the later stages of the purge, even shinobi with no relation to the bloodline limit clans were accused and executed. It had become an excuse for people to kill each other without consequence. In such an environment, everyone in Hidden Mist Village lived in constant fear, terrified of any association with bloodline limit shinobi. It was for this very reason that Juzo had chosen to leave Hidden Mist Village, and why Zabuza had attempted to assassinate the Mizukage. To end Yagura Karatachi's reign. Yet now, after all these years, nothing changed. Zabuza and Juzo had assumed that the fourth Mizukage would have at least restrained himself, but the situation remained the same as before. He still ordered the hunt for bloodline limit users, and the people of Hidden Mist Village continued to live in fear. After spending some time gathering information in the village, Zabuza and Juzo returned to their hideout. Thinking back to the pale, malnourished villagers, and then comparing them to the peaceful citizens of the Land of Fire, Zabuza clenched his fists. Juzo, once we defeat Yagura, we must ensure that Hidden Mist Village's people can live like those in the Land of Fire. We can't let them continue to suffer in fear. Juzo nodded but had a different thought in mind. Instead of Hidden Leaf Village, he pictured Hidden Rain Village and said, I think they'd be better off living like the people in Hidden Rain Village. That place is the true sanctuary of the ninja world. Hidden Rain Village? A sanctuary? Zabuza gave him a skeptical look. I don't know why you joined Hidden Rain Village, or what you experienced there. But from what I know, under Hanzo the Salamander's rule, that place was even more brutal than Hidden Mist Village. The climate alone makes it unfit for human habitation. It's practically a living hell. Juzo shook his head. That was before. Ever since Akatsuki overthrew Hanzo and took over, the Land of Rain has changed. Ninjas treat each other like family, and there's barely any separation between shinobi and civilians. Ninja treating each other like family? That sounds like the nonsense Hidden Leaf Village preaches. Zabuza scoffed. Do you really think shinobi raised in a sheltered environment like that can withstand the reality of war? The moment they step onto the battlefield, their legs will turn to jelly. Juzo sighed and explained. Akatsuki's shinobi may not be as battle-hardened as those of Hidden Mist Village, but they aren't abandoned for being too weak. No one is forced into cruel survival tests like ours. Besides, Akatsuki has developed many advanced weapons that allow even low-level ninjas to fight on par with Chunin, or even Anbu. They use chakra technology to make up for their shortcomings. Faced with Juzo's relentless praise of Akatsuki, Zabuza found himself at a loss for words. If Akatsuki was really as powerful as Juzo claimed, why were they still hiding in the tiny Land of Rain instead of openly competing with the 5 great shinobi villages? As for Byakuya's claim that Hidden Mist Village should become a vassal of Akatsuki, Zabuza dismissed it as a joke. Of course, if Zabuza had known that Akatsuki had already seized control of the northern continent and was secretly influencing the Land of Wind, his perspective might have been different. Still, hearing about Akatsuki's internal structure did make him a little envious. Back in his days at the Ninja Academy, Zabuza had made many friends. But they had all died during the graduation exam. And it was Zabuza himself who had killed them. Shaking off his distracting thoughts, Zabuza sighed and said, "Fine, fine. Let's say everything you said is true. Even if Akatsuki is great, it has nothing to do with Hidden Mist Village. Let's focus on our own business first. Didn't your Byakuya-sama tell you to assist me? At least for now, you're still a Hidden Mist Village shinobi." This time, it was Juzo's turn to be speechless. Zabuza had a point. After a long conversation, Zabuza and Juzo left their hideout and each began making preparations to overthrow the fourth Mizukage. Zabuza headed to the residential district to secretly contact his former comrades and subordinates. When these shinobi saw him, they were first shocked, then sighed quietly before asking about his experiences and his reasons for attempting to assassinate the Mizukage. Their tone carried a hint of regret. With Zabuza's talent, he could have easily become one of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist. And once a member of the 7 swordsmen, he would already be among the upper ranks of the village. If he had simply waited another 10 years, he could have been a legitimate candidate for Mizukage instead of taking such a huge risk. Zabuza didn't waste time with small talk. He directly shared his suspicions about the Mizukage and extended an invitation to them. But when they heard that the fourth Mizukage never left his office and might be under someone's control, they all fell silent. Then, one by one, they looked at Zabuza and gave their answer. "Zabuza-sama, what you say makes sense. We, too, have our doubts about Mizukage-sama. But I'm sorry, we cannot follow you on this mission. This is nothing more than a suicide attempt." That was the response from most of the shinobi. While they did have suspicions about the fourth Mizukage and wanted to uncover the truth, risking their lives to follow Zabuza in a coup? That was out of the question. After all, the fourth Mizukage wasn't just the strongest shinobi in the village. He was also the Jinchuriki of the Three Tails. Even if they knew the fourth Mizukage was being controlled, so what? Could they possibly deal with the mastermind behind it? And who could guarantee that the next Mizukage wouldn't fall under the influence of another mysterious figure? Still, they couldn't bring themselves to stop or expose Zabuza either. Perhaps it was because they were completely disillusioned with the fourth Mizukage, or perhaps they were hoping for a hero to appear and free them from this living hell. Only a very small number of people were willing to follow Zabuza in his attempt to overthrow the fourth Mizukage. Over the course of an entire day and night, Zabuza sought out more than a dozen capable ninja, but in the end, only 2 or 3 agreed to join him in his assassination attempt. These 2 or 3 were ninja with no ties left. Or rather, the only thing they had left to care about was the village itself. These people could easily assassinate high-ranking nobles from the great nations, but when it came to assassinating the fourth Mizukage, they stood no chance. By the time Zabuza returned to the temporary hideout, his determination had wavered. He started to doubt whether his plan could succeed. Maybe he really did need Byakuya's help after all. At that moment, Juzo Biwa also returned. Looking at him, Zabuza grew curious and asked, "Juzo, you're one of the 7 ninja swordsmen. A lot of ninjas should have answered your call. How many jonin have you found? How many are willing to follow you?" Juzo shook his head and said, "I didn't seek out any jonin. I just followed Byakuya-sama's instructions and went to find Master Genji." "Master Genji?" Hearing this name, Zabuza's expression shifted. He frowned and said, "Why are you looking for that old man? He can barely walk anymore. How is he supposed to help us against the fourth Mizukage? Do you really think many ninjas will follow you?" Juzo looked at Zabuza as if he were an idiot. "With Master Genji's support, the jonin in the village who are still undecided might not join us, but at the very least, they won't stand in our way." Juzo's words hit Zabuza's sore spot. His influence truly couldn't compare to Genji's. If he had secured Genji's support back then, maybe he really could have overthrown the Mizukage. Thinking of this, Zabuza scoffed and said stubbornly, "That old man might still be of some use, but the fourth Mizukage's purges have been going on for years, and he hasn't stepped in to stop them. I bet he's deliberately trying to destroy Hidden Mist Village." Hearing this, Juzo was somewhat inclined to agree. If Genji had intervened earlier, maybe the village wouldn't have ended up in its current state. But on second thought, if Genji had acted, he likely would have been eliminated by the true mastermind. After a moment of silence, Juzo finally said, "I trust Byakuya-sama's judgment. If we can gain Master Genji's support, this plan will go much more smoothly." Zabuza looked at Juzo, suddenly remembering something. He asked, "If we ask Master Genji for help, that doesn't count as accepting Byakuya's assistance, right?" Juzo shook his head. "Of course not. Byakuya-sama isn't that petty." Zabuza nodded. Good. That way, we don't have to argue with Byakuya about it. While we wait for Master Genji's response, let's keep reaching out to more people. Inside the elder's residence. After reading the scroll Juzo had delivered, Genji let out a sigh and turned his gaze toward the Mizukage building, his eyes full of melancholy. The contents of the scroll weren't extensive, but the amount of information they carried was enormous. It detailed the various policies the fourth Mizukage had implemented over the years, highlighted several suspicious aspects about him, and ultimately suggested that he might be under Genjutsu control. Faced with this possibility, Genji did not deny it. In fact, he had suspected something was wrong with the fourth Mizukage for a long time. Ever since becoming Mizukage, Yagura had rarely left the Mizukage building, nor had he visited Genji much. Before he became Mizukage, Yagura frequently came to visit under various pretexts. Genji knew that Yagura was seeking his support to gain an advantage in the race for the position of Mizukage. And Genji had been quite satisfied with him, believing that this young man could lead the village to prosperity. But at some point, Yagura stopped visiting him and started issuing one incomprehensible decree after another. It was understandable that he no longer visited. Genji was old, after all. It was natural for him to be discarded after being used as a stepping stone to power. He had even welcomed the peace and quiet, enjoying his retirement. But Yagura's policies had gone too far. Yes, Hidden Mist Village had always upheld the Bloody Mist ideology, and bloodline clans had often been a source of instability. The simple solution would have been to support one bloodline clan while suppressing another, maintaining the Mizukage's authority. Yet, instead of this, Yagura had chosen to target all bloodline clans, triggering a full-scale purge. After years of these purges, Hidden Mist Village had indeed been cleansed of bloodline clans, and there was no longer any threat from them. But the village had suffered tremendously in the process. It would take at least a decade to recover. If another ninja village decided to take advantage of this period of weakness, Hidden Mist Village's very survival would be in question. As these policies continued, more and more jonin came to Genji to complain. He had also secretly sheltered many who had been persecuted. Gradually, he began to doubt the fourth Mizukage. Had Yagura suffered some kind of trauma that led him to issue such cruel orders? Or was he a spy from another village, working to weaken Hidden Mist Village from within? Or perhaps he had fallen under Genjutsu control? But suspicions were one thing. Without solid evidence, Genji could not act against the Mizukage. Firstly, because he was the one who had endorsed Yagura's ascension. Secondly, because the Mizukage's authority was absolute. While Genji's seniority meant his influence in the village surpassed even that of the Mizukage, an elder's power should never outweigh the Mizukage's. If an elder ever openly challenged the Mizukage, it would set a dangerous precedent. Hidden Mist Village would descend into even greater chaos, leading to an even worse outcome. Thus, even after reading this letter, Genji still couldn't bring himself to act directly against Yagura. At most, he could continue sheltering ninja who opposed the Mizukage, encouraging them to investigate the truth. Perhaps they could find a way to get close to the Mizukage and uncover the secret behind his condition. Just as Genji was reaching a decision, something in the scroll caught his eye. He picked it up again, and his expression instantly grew solemn. There was hidden text within the scroll's inner lining. Opening the hidden layer, Genji took a deep breath, his face darkening. This information was even more important than the theory that Yagura was under Genjutsu control. It detailed major events that had taken place in Hidden Mist Village over the years. And at the very end of the intelligence report, a symbol appeared. A symbol that had vanished from the ninja world for years. Chapter 341, The Elder's Choice. Faced with a report detailing the major events of Hidden Mist Village over the years, Genji wasn't stupid to be careless. He put on his reading glasses and began to carefully examine the contents. It took him over 10 minutes to go through the report before he finally set it down. The document itself was not long, only a few hundred words, but it contained a detailed account of all major events in Hidden Mist Village since the death of the second Mizukage. Among the key events were the election of the third Mizukage, the birth of the Bloody Mist policy, and the ongoing purge of the bloodline limit clans. But the event that caught Genji's attention the most was the Three Tails Jinchuriki plan. This plan was proposed toward the end of the Third Shinobi World War. At that time, Hidden Mist Village's bloodline limit forces had been driven back by the Hyuga and Uchiha clans, and the 7 ninja swordsmen of the Mist, whom the village had placed great hopes on, were defeated by an unknown Hidden Leaf Village geinin. This series of failures made Hidden Mist Village realize the depth of Hidden Leaf Village's strength and solidified their resolve to fight to the death against them. Ultimately, it led the third Mizukage to formulate the Three Tails Jinchuriki plan. The plan was simple: capture a Hidden Leaf Village shinobi, seal Isabu, the Three Tails, inside their body, and then, once that shinobi returned to Hidden Leaf Village, undo the seal. unleashing a tailed beast rampage. The plan seemed promising at first, but many shinobi elites opposed it. If it succeeded, Hidden Leaf Village would indeed suffer heavy losses. However, if Hidden Leaf Village discovered the plan ahead of time, Hidden Mist Village would end up losing a tailed beast. Despite the opposition, the third Mizukage insisted, and the plan was carried out. The Anbu of Hidden Mist Village launched a full-scale operation, capturing Nohara Rin of Minato's squad and transforming her into the Three Tails Jinchuriki, then forcing her to move toward Hidden Leaf Village. But plans rarely go as expected. The night before the plan could come to fruition, Nohara Rin died. Along with all of Hidden Mist Village's Anbu involved in the mission. The devastating loss left Hidden Mist Village crippled, stripping it of its ability to compete with Hidden Leaf Village and forcing it to retreat from the Shinobi World War altogether. In the aftermath, the village's official stance was that Minato no Mikaze had single-handedly foiled the plan. As the man who had single-handedly held off Hidden Stone's Village's assassination squads, Minato could have certainly eliminated Hidden Mist Village's Anbu one by one using the Flying Thunder God. To Genji, this explanation had been conclusive. Only Minato no Mikaze could have prevented the Three Tails Jinchuriki plan. There was no one else in the Shinobi world who could have done it. However, the report in front of him raised a number of unsettling questions. Why did Hidden Mist Village agree to such an absurd plan in the first place? Why was the Jinchuriki specifically chosen from Minato no Mikaze's subordinates? Why wasn't a Mist Shinobi selected instead? At this point, Genji found himself sharing the same doubts. The report continued, questioning every major event that followed. Why had the third Mizukage suddenly stepped down at the end of the war? Why had the fourth Mizukage continued the Bloody Mist policy and enacted policies that harmed both Hidden Mist Village and himself? At the end of the document, the author presented a chilling hypothesis. One that connected all the dots. If the Bloody Mist policy, a policy that blatantly went against Hidden Mist Village's interests, originated during the third Mizukage's reign, then was it possible that every Mizukage since had merely been a puppet under someone's control? The third Mizukage may not have even realized he was being controlled. And once he did, his time was up, leading to the fourth Mizukage's rise. The fourth Mizukage, in turn, perpetuated the same policy, further deepening the chaos within Hidden Mist Village. Now, the real question was, how were these Mizukage being controlled? A Mizukage was far too powerful to be subdued by ordinary Genjutsu. There was only one possible explanation. A certain clan known for their cursed eyes. After the Valley of the End battle, the demon who had once struck fear into the world died at the hands of the god of Shinobi. But during his years away from Hidden Leaf Village, he must have left something behind. Could the chaos in the Shinobi world all be his doing? Could he be hiding within Hidden Mist Village? Upon reading this, Genji unconsciously swallowed hard. He had a terrifying suspicion about the identity of the author. As he continued, the writing returned to a normal tone. The mysterious figure claimed that Hidden Mist Village was likely the hiding place of Madara Uchiha's remnants. After all, only the Mangekyo Sharingan could control the five Kage. And at the bottom of the paper, a single, unmistakable emblem was drawn. The symbol of the Senju clan. This message had been delivered by Juzobiwa, but the sender was a Senju Shinobi. For a long time, Genji remained silent. The Senju clan had founded Hidden Leaf Village, and Princess Tsunade, who carried their bloodline, was still active across the Shinobi world. Yet, there were no longer any Shinobi who bore the Senju name. This once mighty clan was now on the verge of extinction. If someone had stood before him and claimed to be a Senju, he would have dismissed them as a lunatic. But the messenger was Juzobiwa, one of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist. Someone powerful enough to have Juzobiwa deliver their message must be extraordinary. More importantly, the hidden details in the letter contained information that only Hidden Mist Village's top brass should know. That meant this person was unlikely to be a fraud. They might truly be a Senju survivor. But why was this Senju? Instead of helping Hidden Leaf Village, which was still embroiled in war, spending all their efforts on hunting down Madara's remnants? Genji couldn't understand. But just then, a realization struck him. Could this Senju be from the second Hokage's lineage? Considering how Hidden Leaf Village had suffered both the Nine Tails attack and the Uchiha massacre in just the past 10 years, it made sense that eliminating Madara's remnants had become their top priority. With this understanding, Genji was faced with a decision. The Senju survivor had informed him that 2 Hidden Mist Village rogue shinobi had been sent to test the 4th Mizukage. If they could push the Mizukage into a desperate situation, they might expose the truth behind his control. They wanted Genji's cooperation to solve this problem once and for all. And they had even extended an invitation to form a shinobi alliance. The first proposal, Genji didn't oppose. He already suspected the 4th Mizukage was being controlled, and having a strong ally to deal with the issue was welcome. But the second? Genji rejected it outright. A shinobi alliance? What kind of nonsense was that? If Hidden Mist Village were to join the Shinobi Alliance in the same way as the other villages, it would only be a matter of decades before the village's existence became nothing more than a historical footnote. This was a brutal thought for someone like Genji, who had witnessed the rise, development, and decline of Hidden Mist Village firsthand. He pulled his wandering thoughts back together, feeling a complex mix of emotions. He would certainly agree to cooperate with the Senju descendant. It wasn't because the Senju name was so prestigious, but because the impact of Madara Uchiha on the world left an indelible mark. Back in the day, Madara had never considered cooperating with the other villages. He wanted all the shinobi villages to submit to Hidden Leaf Village, to make it the sole, unchallenged village in the world. If Hashirama hadn't intervened, the first great ninja war would have happened a decade earlier than it did. With that thought in mind, Genji waved his hand and said to a trusted ninja, "Call mate Rumami and Dao over. I need to discuss something with them." The trusted ninja nodded and, with a flash of the teleportation jutsu, disappeared. About 10 minutes later, mate Rumami and Dao arrived at the elder's residence. Mate Rumami was a bloodline limit user, possessing both lava style and boil style, and was one of the most promising candidates to contest for the position of 5th Mizukage. According to the policies of the ongoing purge, a bloodline limit user like mate Rumami would normally have been imprisoned or closely monitored by Hidden Mist Villages and Buu. However, Genji had protected her, ensuring she was unaffected by the purge and able to focus on improving her strength. In contrast, Ao was much older, nearing his 40s. He was the leader of the Hidden Mist Village Jonin class, a high-ranking figure within the village. The reason Genji had called him over, however, wasn't just because of his position in Hidden Mist Village's hierarchy. More importantly, Ao possessed a Byakugan, a rare treasure acquired from the Hyuga clan during the Third Great Ninja War. It was the strongest sensory ability within Hidden Mist Village, and if they were to investigate whether the 4th Mizukage had been controlled, Ao was the one to turn to. After entering the elder's residence, mate Rumami and Ao exchanged a glance before addressing Genji. "Genji-sama, you've called for us. What is it that you need to discuss?" Instead of answering immediately, Genji asked, Ao, what do you think of the 4th Mizukage's actions these past few years?" Both of them were taken aback by the question. After a long pause, Ao cautiously replied, "The 4th Mizukage has been very mysterious lately. He spends all his time at the Mizukage building and rarely leaves. The policies he's enacted also seem strange." Mate Rumami, hands on her hips, didn't hold back. The 4th Mizukage is clearly not suffering from old age yet he continues to make foolish decisions. Sometimes, I even wonder if he's been hit by an explosive tag and has lost his mind. At that point, Mai seemed to realize what she said and quickly added, "Genji-sama, I didn't mean any offense. You're much older than the 4th Mizukage, but you don't seem to be suffering from any senility." "Well, thank you for that." Genji smiled dryly at her. He had watched mate Rumami grow up, and their relationship was more like that of a grandfather and granddaughter. Genji didn't mind her attitude, but he couldn't help but wonder how mate Rumami would ever find a husband with that personality. An awkward silence hung in the air for a while until Mai looked at Genji and asked, "Genji-sama, since you've mentioned the 4th Mizukage, are you planning to unite the Jonin of the village to impeach him and force him out of the Mizukage position? If you lead the effort, I'm sure the 4th Mizukage would be removed." Mai continued. Genji shook his head. "I won't take action against the 4th Mizukage, but there are indeed plans to do so. Just a few hours ago, I met with Juzobiwa and the letter he brought with him." "Juzobiwa came?" Mate Rumami and Ao exchanged wary glances before saying, "Juzobiwa is a rogue ninja now. He didn't harm you, did he?" "Of course not." Genji chuckled. "Perhaps it's my old reputation that still holds some sway in the village, but Juzobiwa did bring me some important information." "What information?" Mate Rumami and Ao were immediately curious. After a brief pause, Genji explained. "Juzobiwa has allied with Sabuza Momiki and is planning an assassination attempt on the 4th Mizukage. They suspect that the 4th Mizukage has been placed under Ganjutsu control." Mate Rumami and Ao were stunned. Juzobiwa and Zabuza plotting to assassinate the Mizukage was shocking enough, but to come to Genji for support? It seemed like a suicide mission. How could Genji possibly ignore rogue ninjas threatening the village? Then, they heard the second part of the message, which made their shock even greater. A rogue ninja assassination attempt to save the village? The idea was so absurd, it was almost laughable. But then, the more they thought about it, the more they realized it wasn't entirely out of the question. The 4th Mizukage's recent policies were so erratic, they seemed more like the work of a low-level genin than a seasoned politician. Policies that put bloodline limit clans at risk, allowed squad leaders to kill teammates to protect secrets. It was as if a strategy had been devised by someone with no understanding of how to govern. Looking at the stunned Maître Momiandao, Genji said, I know Juzobiwa's words sound far-fetched, but I too have begun to suspect that the fourth Mizukage might really be under some kind of control. Maître Momiandao slowly responded. Genji-sama, are you suggesting? Genji took a deep breath and said, my plan is to allow Juzobiwa and Zabuza Momiki to carry out their mission to test the fourth Mizukage. We won't interfere too much. During this time, I need you to gather as many ninjas as possible and maintain communication with them. If the fourth Mizukage really has been controlled, we'll confront both him and the person controlling him. If not, we'll follow the village's tradition and remain neutral during their conflict. After giving his orders, Genji seemed to lose his energy. He looked as though he had aged years in an instant. By issuing these orders, it felt like he had already abandoned any hope of the fourth Mizukage. Whether the Mizukage was under control or not, Genji knew that Juzobiwa's mission would lead to the end of the fourth Mizukage's reign. Chapter 342, Kisame and Obito hearing Genji's orders, Maître Momiandao exchanged glances, seeing shock and disbelief in each other's eyes. As ninjas who were protected under Genji's wing, they understood exactly what his words meant. Genji chose to abandon the fourth Mizukage completely. Years ago, it was Genji who had personally helped Yagura Karatachi rise to power. If not for the fact that Yagura's actions had disappointed him to the extreme, Genji would never have issued such an order or personally involved himself in the coup against Hidden Mist Village's leadership. But for them, this was good news. They had long been dissatisfied with the fourth Mizukage's rule, believing that Yagura was utterly unfit for the position. Unlike those who dared to raise their blades against the Mizukage outright, however, they had always hesitated, staying under Genji's protection and waiting for the right opportunity. After all, as long as Genji did not oppose the Mizukage, any of their efforts would be in vain. Now that he had spoken, everything had changed. After revealing his decision, Genji felt weary. Waving a hand, he signaled for Mai and Ao to leave. They were elite Jonin he had nurtured for Hidden Mist Village, and now it was time for them to take the lead. Upon leaving the elders' residence, Mai and Ao first glanced behind them, then found a secluded spot to discuss what had just transpired. Mai turned to the older Ao and asked, Ao, should we contact Zabuza and Juzobiwa immediately? If we reach out too soon, the Anbu might take notice. But if we don't, it'll be difficult for them to pose a real threat to the village. Ao thought for a moment before replying. Genji-sama's instructions were clear. We can't contact them openly, but we can send someone to reach out discreetly. As for how to handle things from here, that depends on you, Mai. Do you want to become a high-ranking figure in Hidden Mist Village? Or do you want to be the next Mizukage? Mai fell silent. With her ambitious nature, she certainly wanted to become Mizukage. To prove herself and to protect their fractured village. But if she wanted to secure enough merit to claim the title, she would have to take a stand against the fourth Mizukage herself. Could she truly defeat Yagura? Had he really been placed under Genjutsu control? With Zabuza and Juzobiwa leading the charge, was it worth taking such a risk? Mai hesitated, unable to give an immediate answer. Seeing this, Ao sighed inwardly. Mai still lacked decisiveness. If she was to be lifted to the position of Mizukage, he would have to help her take that step. But he had no right to criticize her. After all, even he had lacked the courage to act sooner. With his Byakugan, Ao should have noticed that something was wrong with the fourth Mizukage long ago. Yet he didn't dare to step into the Mizukage's office, instead seeking shelter under Genji's guidance. Now, the time for hesitation was over. Later that night, sensing that something was amiss, Zabuza returned to their hideout earlier than usual. Inside, Juzobiwa was casually eating fruit, as if he had been waiting for him all along. Hearing footsteps behind him, Juzo flashed an innocent smile at Zabuza. Zabuza fixed his gaze on Juzo, trying to discern what felt wrong about him. Something seemed off, but he couldn't put his finger on it. Feeling uneasy under Zabuza's scrutiny, Juzo turned to him and asked, How did things go tonight? Did you manage to recruit more people, or was it as difficult as before? Zabuza shook his head and replied, Something is definitely wrong. The number of ninjas willing to join our coup has increased several times over. In just half the night, over a dozen have agreed. I suspect the letter you sent to Genji is working. We must have his support. Juzo smirked and said. No need to guess. Genji-sama definitely supports us. He must have secretly informed those neutral ninjas. Otherwise, there's no way so many people would suddenly join you. Zabuza frowned and asked. If Genji-sama is backing us, why hasn't he sent someone to contact us directly? We could confront the fourth Mizukage in public and test whether he's really under Genjutsu. If the mastermind is nearby, they wouldn't dare reveal themselves. Juzo shook his head. Genji-sama won't do that. This is about the Mizukage's dignity. Yagura may be under control, but the fourth Mizukage must be given a respectable conclusion. If word got out that Yagura had been manipulated by Genjutsu for years, Hidden Mist Village would become a laughingstock. Juzo paused slightly before continuing. That's why we can never be recognized as legitimate rebels. We have to attack as rogue ninjas. It's the only way to preserve both the Mizukage's and the village's reputation. Zabuza's expression darkened. So even with Genji's support, we'll still be treated as traitors? If we fail, we'll just be remembered as outlaws. Juzo nodded, watching Zabuza carefully. The moment I set foot back in the land of water, I was already prepared for this. You should be too, Zabuza-senpai. To Juzo, this was his final duty to Hidden Mist Village. If he could help the village escape the Blood Mist era, he would sever all ties with it and dedicate himself fully to Akatsuki. And if he failed, then at least he would have died trying, fulfilling his duty as one of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist. As for Hidden Mist Village's future, that was not his concern. Zabuza pulled out a kunai, pointing it at Juzo's face. I was ready to die the last time I tried to assassinate the Mizukage. I'll show you that I'm more fit than you to be one of the 7 swordsmen. More fit to wield the executioner's blade. Juzo raised an eyebrow and sighed. You want the executioner's blade? Pausing, he then smirked. For the courage you've shown in raising your blade against the Mizukage, whether you succeed or fail, I'll give you the executioner's blade myself. Meanwhile, at the Mizukage's office, Obito Uchiha sat in the Mizukage's chair, reviewing official documents. Beside him stood a small figure. The 4th Mizukage, Yagura Karatachi. Ever since using his Mangekyo Sharingan to control Yagura, Obito had frequently appeared in the Mizukage's office, taking his place. Partly to ensure that the Genjutsu held strong, preventing Yagura from breaking free. If Yagura ever escaped his control, things would become very troublesome. Back then, Obito had taken him down in an instant using his Kamui. A first strike kill. But if Yagura regained his senses now, it wouldn't be so easy. On the other hand, it was also to enjoy the taste of power and relax his tense demeanor. Over the years, he had been active in the shinobi world under the identity of the masked Madara Uchiha, often forgetting his own dreams and even who he truly was. Adding to that bastard Byakuya was always sabotaging his plans, stealing his achievements, making him grit his teeth in hatred. Yet there was nothing he could do about it. The reason was simple, he didn't have the power to counterbalance Byakuya. Byakuya was closer to Nagato, who possessed the Rinnegan. Byakuya also knew about the infinite Tsukuyomi plan. Byakuya even had the means to counter his Kamui. His only remaining advantage over Byakuya was his Uchiha bloodline. If Byakuya had also been an Uchiha, perhaps even Madara Uchiha wouldn't have chosen him back then. He might have chosen Byakuya instead. After all, in every aspect, Byakuya was the superior replacement. With all these factors combined, the only place where he could truly let loose was in Hidden Mist Village. Sitting in the Mizukage's seat, Obito casually flipped through intelligence scrolls, selecting one at random to review and approve. The first matter concerned the policy of purging bloodline clans. Many Jonin of Hidden Mist Village believed that the bloodline clans had already been thoroughly weakened and no longer posed a threat to the village's order. While bloodline shinobi had the potential to go out of control, they were still an important combat force for the village. It was time to rescind the order for the Great Purge and allow the village to return to normal. Obito would never agree to such a request. He still remembered what the bloodline clans did to the Uchiha during the Third Shinobi World War. Let alone the fact that Hidden Mist Village was responsible for Rin's death. For that reason alone, he could never forgive Hidden Mist Village. Hidden Mist Village had to remain weak at all times for him to feel satisfied. But weren't these Jonin under Genji's protection getting a bit too arrogant? If not for Genji's overwhelming influence, he would have dealt with him long ago. The second piece of news came from Hidden Mist Village's Anbu. They had failed in their pursuit of the Six Tails Jinchuriki, Utakata. For Obito, this failure was entirely expected. After all, he was the one who had secretly sabotaged the mission. It was better for Hidden Mist Village's Jinchuriki to remain outside the village than within it. If a Jinchuriki disappeared inside the village, it would immediately draw the attention of all the Hidden Mist Village shinobi. However, if one vanished outside, the reaction would be much smaller. This was all part of his careful planning. He was the one who had contributed the most to the Eye of the Moon plan. The third piece of news concerned Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Stones Village. After half a year of war, both sides were reaching their limits and seemed likely to negotiate peace soon. Upon seeing this, Obito's expression darkened. Not because Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Stones Village were ending the war too soon, but because this battlefield had been orchestrated by Byakuya. The timing of Hidden Stones Village's attack on the Land of Fire was too close to the Uchiha massacre. It had to be connected to Byakuya. The thought that Byakuya was handling the Eye of the Moon plan better than him left Obito feeling uneasy. Why was it that every time he surpassed one genius, another would appear in front of him? As if it were some kind of curse? And Byakuya's contributions to the Eye of the Moon plan didn't stop there. Obito had also heard that Hidden Sand Village had recently appointed a new Kazekage, and the one who took the seat was none other than the Red Sand Scorpion, one of Byakuya's subordinates. On top of that, Byakuya had already collected the Two Tails and Seven Tails and had influence over many smaller nations. At times, Obito even wondered, was Byakuya's goal of gathering the nine-tailed beasts and creating a tailed beast weapon to dominate the shinobi world just a lie? After all, even without the 10 tails, Byakuya already controlled nearly a quarter of the shinobi world. The more he thought about it, the more frustrated he became. But in the end, no matter how much Byakuya contributed to the Eye of the Moon plan, the one who would claim the final victory wouldn't be Byakuya. It would be him. So what if Byakuya had control over the tailed beasts and the Rinnegan? The secret to controlling the 10 tails was known only to himself and Madara Uchiha. Once he seized control of the 10 tails, everything Byakuya had done would ultimately benefit him. Knock, knock, knock. At the sound of knocking, Obito furrowed his brows. He motioned for the fourth Mizukage to hide behind the cabinet, then used the transformation jutsu to take on the Mizukage's appearance before calling out. What is it? It's me, Mizukage-sama. Recognizing the familiar voice, Obito opened the door and saw the towering, shark-like shinobi standing before him. Slowly, he asked. What is it, Kisame? The shark-faced man before him was Kisame Hoshigaki. He was Obito's most important subordinate in Hidden Mist Village. The only one in the village who knew his true identity. Obito had invested no less effort in Kisame than he had in Itachi Uchiha. Even when Kisame was still under the command of Fuki Suikazan, Obito had already taken an interest in him. After witnessing Kisame kill his superior, subordinates, and even the person he admired in order to complete a mission, Obito was certain that Kisame would be one of his most useful subordinates. When Obito revealed his identity to Kisame, he gained his unwavering loyalty. For Kisame, loyalty was a simple matter. He didn't care who he served. He simply needed someone to follow. Whether it was the fourth Mizukage or the enigmatic masked man, it made no difference to him. In this world full of lies and betrayal, all he needed to do was carry out his missions with diligence. After a moment of contemplation, Kisame said to Obito. Mizukage-sama, the people around Genji have been moving about frequently. I suspect they're plotting something against you. Chapter 343, The Battle of Hidden Mist Village. Frequent movement on Genji's side? You suspect they're going to make a move against me? Hearing this, Obito frowned slightly, glancing in the direction of the elder's residence before chuckling. He didn't believe that Genji and his ragtag group could pose much of a threat to him. Though Genji was highly respected in Hidden Mist Village, the shinobi world ultimately revolved around strength. Perhaps decades ago, Genji possessed power comparable to the 5 Kage, but how much of that strength remained now? Not every shinobi was like Hidden Leaf Village's 3rd Hokage, still capable of battling the Nine Tails despite being in his 50s or 60s. As for the group under Genji's command, Obito paid them even less mind. Even Maitru Mummy, who possessed 2 KK Genkai, seemed quite unremarkable to him. The only one he was slightly wary of was Ao, the Jonin who had transplanted a Byakugan. At that moment, Kisame spoke. Mizukage-sama, things are different this time. It seems that group has begun to suspect your identity. Also, according to the intel I obtained, the missing ninja Zabuza and Yazobiwa have secretly infiltrated the village. Zabuza and Yazobiwa have entered the village? Obito's expression shifted, his tone growing heavier. Are you certain? Did your men see them with their own eyes? Kisame nodded. As a former member of the 7 Ninja Swordsmen of the Mist, his information network was extensive. He had even personally received an invitation from Zabuza to join their plan to overthrow the 4th Mizukage, but he had firmly refused. Obito knew Kisame wouldn't lie, but he still found the situation troubling. After confirming the intel, he fell silent for a few seconds, his expression darkening. As the supreme leader of Hidden Mist Village, he had a thorough understanding of the village's Jonin, especially well-known figures like Zabuza and Yazobiwa. Zabuza was a promising young Jonin who had even attempted to assassinate the 4th Mizukage, Yagura Itachi, not long ago. Though that attempt had ultimately failed to harm Yagura, it had momentarily weakened Obito's control over him, almost allowing Yagura to regain his senses. After the assassination attempt, Obito repeatedly sent operatives to hunt down Zabuza. However, the Anbu he sent had been completely outmatched, allowing Zabuza to escape time and again through various means. As for Yazobiwa, there had been no direct conflict between them. After his protests fell on deaf ears, Juzo had voluntarily left the village, becoming a rogue ninja, though not one officially marked for capture. But the problem was that Juzo Biwa later joined Akatsuki. Theoretically, this meant they were both part of the same organization. So why was Juzo working with Zabuza? After pondering for a moment, Obito's expression became even more uncertain. He began to suspect the true reason behind their alliance. He began to wonder, was the mastermind behind this operation someone familiar? Could it be Byakuya once again? It was one thing for Byakuya to fight him over control of the Uchiha clan. That was still a fair competition. Obito's chosen pawn, Itachi Uchiha, had lost to Shizue Uchiha simply because he wasn't skilled enough. That, he could accept. But Hidden Mist Village had long been within his grasp. He had been waiting for the right moment to harvest the Three Tails and Six Tails Jinchuriki. And now, at this crucial stage, Byakuya wanted to steal his achievements? Kisame, observing Obito's silence, finally spoke. Mizukage-sama, should we take action against them in advance? Pulled back to reality, Obito shook his head slightly. Not for now. I want to see how much effort they will put into overthrowing the fourth Mizukage. Against such a formidable opponent, they'll have no choice but to put aside their differences and work together. Kisame was slightly puzzled but still asked. Then what should we do next? Just sit back and watch them go after Yagura? Of course not. Obito glanced at Kisame and then said. How is the mission I assigned to you going? Have you found Utakata's exact location? Kisame nodded. Utakata is currently hiding his identity and residing on Mushi Island. Mushi Island, huh? Looks like it's time to pay Utakata a visit. Obito nodded slightly, then seemed to remember something and turned to Kisame. One more thing, we'll be leaving Hidden Mist Village soon. I won't be the fourth Mizukage any longer. From now on, you should address me as Madara Uchiha instead. Kisame was momentarily stunned, looking up at Obito. Was he really abandoning Hidden Mist Village? But why? Even though the village was currently weak, it was still one of the 5 great shinobi villages. It could still play a significant role in executing the Eye of the Moon plan. There was no reason to abandon it now. But despite his doubts, Kisame did not question the order. He wasn't the kind of ninja who needed to understand his superior's reasoning. No matter how much he thought about it, he wouldn't be able to figure it out anyway. Better to just follow orders. Obito noticed Kisame's expression and felt somewhat gratified. Kisame was one of his greatest acquisitions from Hidden Mist Village, second only to the Three Tails and Six Tails Jinchuriki. He was a truly valuable asset. By contrast, Itachi Uchiha was far more cunning. Even after agreeing to serve Obito, Itachi had continued secretly gathering intelligence on him, looking for ways to pass it to Hidden Leaf Village. But Itachi would never realize, he was just another pawn in Obito's game. And Shizue Uchiha, who had replaced Denzo within Hidden Leaf Village, was merely another person's pawn. This time, Obito and Byakuya would engage in a new battle within Hidden Mist Village. This time, he would not lose. Even if he had to abandon Hidden Mist Village, he would ensure that his subordinates defeated Byakuya's. 1 week later time flew by, and a week passed in the blink of an eye. In that time, Zabuza and Juzobiwa had gathered over 20 shinobi who were willing to overthrow the fourth Mizukage. All of them were victims of the Blood Mist policy, harboring deep hatred for the fourth Mizukage. They believed that only by overthrowing him, only by sending him to the executioner's block, could they save Hidden Mist Village and make it great once more. Seeing so many like-minded comrades, Zabuza was very satisfied. It wasn't just about increasing their chances of success, it was about knowing that so many people shared his vision and were willing to follow him. His gaze swept across the gathered shinobi before settling on Juzobiwa. Unlike before, he could now sense a deeper resonance with Juzo. The man truly wanted to see him succeed, to see the fourth Mizukage's tyranny end. Taking a deep breath, Zabuza addressed the group, revealing their plan. The attack on the Mizukage's office would begin at 4 a.m. That was when the Anbu and guards would be at their most exhausted, maximizing their chances of success. As the minutes ticked by, 4 a.m. soon arrived. A thick mist rolled in from the sea, blanketing Hidden Mist Village. Using the fog as cover, Zabuza and his group quickly approached the Mizukage's office. Just as expected, the guards were dozing off. Now was the perfect time to strike. After issuing an order to avoid unnecessary killing, Zabuza slipped into the building. By the time the Anbu and guard shinobi realized something was amiss, they had already been subdued and stuffed into sacks. From the shadows, Hidden Mist Village's Anbu noticed something was wrong, only to be swiftly taken down. In the face of Zabuza, a veteran of the Anbu, the average Anbu ninja stood no chance. After just a few exchanges, the defenses of the Mizukage building were completely wiped out. However, despite how easily the guards were dealt with, Zabuza didn't feel any joy. Instead, he became even more serious. The defensive forces of the Mizukage building shouldn't be this weak. Compared to his last infiltration, the defenses had actually been reduced significantly. This made him uneasy. Something felt off. Could it be because of the assistance from the former elder? Even after retiring for so many years, the elder was still able to influence the deployment of the Mizukage building's forces. He had underestimated the old man's influence. Shaking off these stray thoughts, Zabuza led his subordinates to the end of the corridor. All he had to do was push open the door before him, and he would be face to face with the 4th Mizukage. The last time he made it this far, he was immediately surrounded by the 4th Mizukage and Anbu forces. Who knew what the chances of success would be this time? Knocking on the office door, Zabuza and Juzobiwa positioned themselves on either side, ready to strike at a moment's notice. A calm voice came from inside the office. "It's so late. Who's looking for me? Is there something important to report? The door isn't locked, just come in." Hearing this, Zabuza immediately pushed open the office door. Walking straight up to the 4th Mizukage, he was soon followed by Juzobiwa and the other ninjas. Seeing Zabuza and Juzobiwa enter, the 4th Mizukage was momentarily surprised before smiling. "Well, if it isn't Hidden Mist Village's rogue ninja, Zabuza. Are you here to assassinate me again? Was the lesson I taught you last time not enough? And Juzo-senpai, you're a veteran of the village. Do you really need to align yourself with a traitor like Zabuza?" Juzobiwa glanced at the 4th Mizukage and responded, "I don't want to turn against the Mizukage, but your actions these past years aren't those of a true Mizukage. For the sake of Hidden Mist Village, I have no choice but to join forces with Zabuza." The 4th Mizukage sighed softly. "Even you, Juzo-senpai, can't understand my intentions? Are my policies really wrong? I accomplished something no previous Mizukage ever could. I eradicated the bloodline clans from the village. From now on, there will be no more civil wars caused by the conflict between bloodline limit users and ordinary ninjas." Zabuza could no longer tolerate it. He drew his massive blade and pointed it at the 4th Mizukage. "Enough nonsense. We suspect that you aren't even the real Mizukage. Someone must be impersonating you. The real 4th Mizukage wouldn't be like this." Before he even finished speaking, Zabuza swung his blade and charged forward. The 4th Mizukage calmly picked up the green staff at his feet, raising his arm to effortlessly block the attack. With a sigh, he spoke, "I really didn't want to fight my own village's ninjas, but since you've put a blade to my throat, it seems the 7 ninja swordsmen will have to lose another member." With that, the 4th Mizukage swung his staff. The seemingly light staff contained immense force. Just a casual swing was enough to make Zabuza's hands go numb and cause the ground beneath him to cave in slightly. Seeing Zabuza fall into a disadvantage, Juzobiwa joined the fray. Using the teleportation jutsu, he appeared behind the 4th Mizukage, his Kubika Ribicho aimed at the Mizukage's neck. His blade struck, but instead of flesh, it sliced through a wave of water. The 4th Mizukage had already dissolved into a stream of water, swiftly pulling back. Water style, water mirror technique. Instantly, a water mirror formed. From it, 2 perfect water clones emerged, mimicking Zabuza and Juzobiwa's exact movements. The clones launched an attack identical to their own, possessing the same speed and strength. When their real bodies clashed with the water clones, Zabuza and Juzobiwa's expressions changed. The water mirror technique was the 4th Mizukage's signature move, capable of perfectly copying an enemy's actions and techniques. It was one of Hidden Mist Village's most formidable jutsu. During the past ninja wars, he had used this technique to slay numerous high-ranking ninjas. However, it wasn't without flaws. If the enemy fought in total darkness or obscured vision, the water mirror technique would be ineffective. Being a master of silent killing, Zabuza immediately deployed the hidden mist technique, allowing the thick mist to flood the Mizukage building, reducing visibility to just 2 meters. Seeing the thick mist envelop the area, the 4th Mizukage frowned. He immediately leaped back and shattered a window to escape the office. He didn't want to fight an assassination expert in a confined space. Landing gracefully outside, he quickly formed hand seals and muttered, "Wind style, passing typhoon." A sudden gust of wind erupted, sweeping across the battlefield and dispersing the mist in an instant. Now, the 4th Mizukage stood alone in the clearing, surrounded by Zabuza and his gathered allies. With a light chuckle, the Mizukage said, "Do you honestly think you can defeat me? Even if you all attack together, you still don't stand a chance." As he spoke, he began channeling the chakra of the 3 tails, entering a partial tailed beast transformation. A dark red chakra cloak enveloped his body, and 3 long tails emerged from behind him. His eyes locked onto Zabuza and Juzobiwa, a flicker of hesitation in them. But in the next moment, his expression turned cold. In an instant, he disappeared from where he stood. The power of the tailed beast transformation granted him immense speed, strength, defense, and chakra reserves. If there was ever a chance for Zabuza and Juzobiwa to succeed, it had vanished the moment the fourth Mizukage tapped into the three tails power. This was the difference between a Mizukage and the 7 ninja swordsmen. This was the foundation of the fourth Mizukage's reign. Chapter 344, The Stance of a Perfect Jinchuriki. Facing the fourth Mizukage in his tailed beast transformation, Zabuza and Juzobiwa didn't dare show any carelessness. They planned to keep a safe distance and use ninjutsu to deal with him from afar. However, the tailed beast cloak's defense rendered their water-style techniques completely useless. They couldn't even slow him down, let alone break through his defenses. Exchanging glances, Zabuza and Juzobiwa decided to engage in close combat instead. Zabuza would faint while Juzo used the Kubika Ribicho to break through the Mizukage's defenses, forcing him into a life-threatening situation that might weaken the illusion controlling him. A few moments later, Juzo found a perfect opening. He swiftly closed the distance and landed a solid hit on the fourth Mizukage with his Kubika Ribicho. However, the Mizukage took the strike head-on without flinching. At the point of impact, coral-like formations began spreading across his wound, creeping toward both the Kubika Ribicho and Juzo himself. This was a secret technique that could only be used after entering a tailed beast state. It caused the enemy's body to slowly turn into coral upon contact, a condition that persisted until the target was either purified or killed. Realizing the danger, Juzo immediately broke off the affected portion of his blade and stared at the Mizukage with a serious expression. Zabuza's face was equally grim as he approached Juzo and asked, "Juzo, is the intel you got real or fake? Wasn't the fourth Mizukage supposed to be under someone's control? Didn't they say that putting him under enough stress would break the Ganjutsu?" Juzo's face darkened as he frowned. "The intel can't be wrong. The only thing that's off is us. We don't have the strength to push the fourth to his absolute limit. Are you saying we're too weak?" Zabuza almost spat blood in frustration, but he had to admit that Juzo was right. Compared to their last assassination attempt, the fourth Mizukage was much stronger this time. And from the way he handled the situation,